My eyes are blue. How are the pupils? I ask immediately. Pupils. Penelope mutters, pulling my face in closer. They seem normal, perhaps slightly vertically ovoid, but not enough that anyone will notice. Why? What do you know about this? My soul is a big blue eye. With a vertical slit pupil, I explain. So if my real eyes are becoming blue too, that's my first guess as to what's happening. My eyes used to be green, right? Do you think people will notice? Yes and yes, Penelope grumbles. Probably not most people, but the team will. Your family too, but you can just tell them the truth. I mean, I don't know the truth. I've been practicing pulling mana out a lot, and my mana is blue. Sort of. It feels blue in the same way souls feel like they have colors, anyway. That's about the only super relevant thing I did since you last saw me, unless getting into a fight to the death counts. Penelope blinks incredulously at me, then sighs. Of course you mentioned that as an afterthought. Explains the blood on your face, I suppose. Who was your unlucky victim? Nah, don't worry. That's all my blood. How reassuring, Penelope answers flatly. I shall sleep soundly tonight. Anyway, if the team asks, you can blame it on me. It's not like they can get any more insufferable about the modifications you told them I was making. Ugh, I'm sorry. Are they bothering you about that? I genuinely did not realize they would make such a big deal about it. It's fine, Penelope sighs, waving me off. And not something I ever expected an apology for. Still, I am an expert at ignoring stupid, ignorant opinions. It isn't a major issue. Now, other than your recent death battle, are there any other shocking revelations you'd like to unveil before you forget? I think for a moment. Is there anything I've been meaning to tell Penelope but forgot about? The souls inside your lobotomized rats are all wrong. They don't grow anymore. They still function like souls, and they still seem to be involved in controlling the body, but they've become stagnant. Penelope's eyes go wide. Oh. Oh, my goodness. So there is a link. Soul growth. Penelope frowns, tapping her chin. That checks out, I suppose. All the more reason to never die. Though to be fair, it's not as if we don't get anything out of the deal. I'm not sure how one would channel mana without a soul. I guess that makes sense, but Misty still seems like an asshole to me. What else? There are some other things I haven't told her, right? Oh yeah, also when I focused really hard on channeling mana I entered a seemingly infinite expanse from where I apparently pull it all, and then I fell over because I forgot to breathe. And after nearly killing me, Capita heavily implied that her gang is trying to assassinate the king. The king? Wait, your fight was with? Also, a High Templar walked up to me and said that the Inquisitors are coming. Penelope stares at me. I stare back. Is that all? She asks. Are you done? I think about that for a moment, sucking on the inside of my cheek. Penelope crosses her arms, tapping her foot. Yes, I conclude. I'm pretty sure that's all of it, at least for now. She lets out a huff. Okay, then we. Oh, right. I interrupt. I fixed Fulvia's soul. Well, mostly. Heavily damaged souls seem to absorb raw spirit dust the same way that revenants do. Penelope takes a deep breath in, letting it out slowly. Okay, she says, doing her best to sound only slightly exasperated. Well, that's all very interesting, but we should probably be getting back to the guild. The Inquisition is going to be bad news. I was afraid of that, I grumble, following after her as she walks towards the exit. Bye, Mom. Vitamin calls out. I said quit moving. Margaret snaps. Bye, you guys. Good luck while I'm gone. I respond, waving at them both. So what's the Inquisition's deal? While you shouldn't go around saying this to anyone, it's an open secret that the Inquisition is the Church's animancy branch. Not, ostensibly, for any sort of nefarious purposes, however. As you may know, at least a small modicum of animancy is necessary for detecting animancy. It's an amusing conundrum. Animancy is against the law, but in order to be even remotely capable of enforcing the law, animancy must be used. I scowl. So at the very least, these guys are going to have the ability to see souls? I ask. At the very least, Penelope agrees. They're not supposed to be capable of much else, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if they are. Power like yours is a bit too tempting. You are going to need to avoid them entirely either way, that much is certain. Thankfully, there are exceptionally few inquisitors. A bit over a decade and a half ago, that entire branch of the Templars was gutted when the High Inquisitor at the time was found guilty of, shall we say, loosely interpreting the doctrine on animancy. Over half the organization was compromised, and the loss of personnel and reputation is something they've yet to recover from. And how am I going to avoid them? They're looking for me, aren't they? I ask. You're the scout, Penelope dismisses. You managed to avoid half the monsters in the forest, so you figure it out. They have no official capacity to investigate yet, which means if the Inquisitors are being sent it's because they're hoping to catch you in the act. They may not be able to run an official inquiry, but they can bypass most of the bureaucracy we're tying them up with if an Inquisitor personally witnesses you performing animancy. You have more than just your own soul in your body, and that probably counts, so you need to make sure you are never seen. I nod glumly. This might make saving all the souls inside me a little more difficult. Let's try to hurry up on this immortality thing, I sigh. Penelope chuckles dryly, locking up the lab as we exit. Well, it's a good thing you said so, because before now I was planning on taking things as slow as. A beeping noise suddenly cuts her off, causing her to scowl and fish around her collarbone. Penelope. Lord Erebus's voice asks from the necklace when she pulls it out. Johann, Penelope grumbles in answer, weaving a silence bubble around us. What do you need? Penelope. There you are. You weren't answering. I've been horribly worried. I told you already, Johann, my experiments are too delicate to be letting rogue mana signatures invade my lab. I won't get calls when I'm working. What do you need? Well, would you believe that one of my highest profile suppliers has invited us to have a meal with? No, Johann, Penelope snaps immediately. You know I hate those things. I know, but he's quite the family man and I feel it would be somewhat of a faux pas for me to show up without my fiancée. I'm sorry Penelope, but you know how delicate these things are. I'm being called to the Hunters Guild, Johann. I won't even be in the city. I'm sure your supplier will understand. A mission. Penelope, but your hand isn't healed yet. And the hunters lately have been dying by the dozens, you can't. I can't. What? Penelope hisses into her necklace. What I can't do is sit around and eat fancy dinners with rich old fools while my city is in shambles and my country is under siege. I am a Vesuvius. I slaughter Valka's enemies and uplift its kings. Do not presume to tell me that parading around as your accessory is more important than how I choose to use my time. Penelope is red in the face by the end of her tirade, hand clenched like she would crush the metal bead at the end of the necklace if she was able. Lord Erebus is silent for a good while after that, to the point I almost think he's ended the communication. Is that what you think I've been doing? He answers eventually. Penelope, you've barely spoken to me since you got that research lab. You got injured on your last mission and you didn't tell me. And who says I have to tell you? She demands. No one, Penelope. But why aren't you? Is it not reasonable for me to be worried about that? I love you, Penelope. I just want to see you from time to time. She sighs, some of the anger deflating out of her. I'm sorry, Johann. I know you do. Now just, isn't a good time. But I will work on keeping you better informed. Okay. A sigh is heard from the other end. All right. Be safe. Of course I will, Johann. I can't be going and getting myself killed before I'm immune to it. Oh, and you may wish to know that the Broken Drakens have implied plans to usurp the king while attempting to recruit a certain member of my team. You think you can use that to our advantage? That's Yes, probably. I'll see what I can find. Thank you, Penelope. Goodbye, Johann. She tucks the necklace back into her shirt and sighs, seeming suddenly exhausted. You okay? I ask. Penelope chuckles, shaking her head as we resume our journey back to the Hunters Guild. You're a lot like him, you know, she says. Very focused. Though while Johann sees people as a series of tasks to accomplish, you tend to not see people at all. I scowl, confused and offended. That's a weird way to respond to me asking if you're okay, I grumble. I'm trying my best. She smiles, squeezing my shoulder with a still growing hand. Thank you, she says. Somehow, I like being one of the people you try for. You joke about it, but it feels like you're the only person who understands me and still actually wants to be around. I tilt my head. You're welcome. I hedge. Why wouldn't I want to be around you? In addition to all of the prior reasons I have given you, Johann and I are using you in a scheme that will hopefully corrode the political power of the Templars enough to loosen their control on the metal trade, Penelope says. It's been going on more or less since you met him, but I declined to mention anything until now. I nod. Less power for Templars sounds good to me. Okay, I say. Neat. Penelope laughs. You're not even surprised, are you? Or angry? You made me promise to tell you things like this and I kept it a secret and you're not even angry? I shrug. You told me now. So, that's progress. Why would I be angry? You're not gonna hurt me or my family, so anything you do is fine. She laughs some more, shaking her head. See? This is what I mean. You seem like a fool, but you just have your own personal logic. And it's beautiful. I don't have to worry about what you'll think of me. I really can just tell you anything. I can speak my mind. So why don't you? I ask. She stops walking, staring towards me for a moment. Then she shudders. Habit, I suppose. Do you ever? Another pause as she gathers her thoughts. I let her, saying nothing. When I was young, I would kill things for fun, Penelope manages eventually. My talent developed quite early, and well, I was like a child with a new toy. Insects, at first. But it escalated. Rapidly. The sight of watching something fall apart from the inside out was as beautiful to me. But when I showed that to my parents, well, they were disgusted. Of course they were, really. They thought they were raising a watcherdamned serial killer. They said they loved me, of course, but even if that was true, even though they did everything they could for me, it was in service to what they wanted me to be. Not what I was, because they hated that. Feared it. Even a child could tell they did. My grandfather was different, but not much better. He saw opportunity in me, the chance to continue the true lords of Vesuvius. I was more or less raised by biomancy tutors from then on, and well, my parents never complained about me being too busy to be around. She huffs, pulling at one of the loopy swirls of hair on the side of her head. You don't really understand any of this, do you? She asks. Parents, social pressure, obligations, your life never had these things. No, I agree honestly. I don't really get it. But I can tell it hurts you. She swallows, nodding slowly. Alright. Well, most of that doesn't really matter anyway. I was taught to be a healer and a proper lady. I admit to liking some of that. Magic is beautiful. Solving problems, discovering new spells, advancing knowledge. I am glad I was taught those things. But every single other aspect of myself I have to hide. I knew, at the Hunters Guild, that I would be found out. That I would be hated. That my guise as the beautiful and intelligent Third Lady Vesuvius would collapse and reveal the person underneath that just wants to watch a creature's skin boil and pop as it screams in agony. But you found out, and you don't care. Worse, this is the part you understand. Even if my whole background is nonsense to you, this you get, don't you? A grin forms on my lips. The only thing more satisfying than watching revenants scramble to fulfill my orders is the feeling of a life sliding down my throat and dissolving into raw power, I tell her. And it is so horribly infuriating that I know I'll end up regretting it if I just do that to everyone we meet. She grins back, slightly at first but growing wider and wider as she speaks. Right, she agrees. Why can't I just kidnap everyone I don't like and use them to figure out how many plagues I can incubate in a single person before they ultimately expire? Yeah, so, it turns out people get whiny about human experimentation, I say shrugging. Who knew? Ugh, but why? Penelope groans. How am I supposed to figure out how a spell affects a human without using humans? Rats only go so far. We could skip so much wasted time and effort by skipping to human trials. Yeah, well, I bet I could solve our animancy problems really easily if I could just bring an army of revenants to deal with Capita and the Inquisition. We're trying to cure death. Why is that bad? It turns out people get whiny when you try to cure death, too, Penelope complains. Be it immortality or undeath or anything, massive swathes of morons will cry, no, you can't, death is a part of life for all these reasons I made up. It's wrong to prevent death, and definitely not the ultimate goal of all medicine. You overstep your bounds, wah wah wah. We both burst into laughter, a comfortable and joyful moment of shared frustration finally let out. I don't know if I've ever felt her this relaxed before. Things sure would be easier if we could just kill the people who thought like that, Penelope sighs. But alas, that would be wrong. Yep, I agree, nodding glumly. That would be wrong. Fun to think about, but really, it would make me feel like shit. Indeed, Penelope confirms. I often wonder if I'm a psychopath, so it's nice to remind myself once in a while that I probably would feel terrible if I did that. Probably. I ask, raising an eyebrow. She shrugs. Probably. We both giggle a little at that, recognizing it for both the joke and the fear it is. And so we go to slay monsters, Penelope intones, lest we become monsters ourselves. And also because they are delicious, I add. And also that, Penelope snorts, assuming you are an uncouth gremlin whose appetite defies all reason and sense. I need to teach you the meat-treating spell, if only so you'll stop bothering me about it. I gasp, jumping in front of her. Would you? Oh, that would be amazing. Of course I will, she scoffs. We can start well, actually, you don't suffer mana backlash so I suppose we can start today. I'll teach you on the trip. I jump forward and hug her tightly. Best friend ever. I cheer. Meat-treating spell. Yes. I will never be hungry again. Never. Yes, Penelope mumbles, squirming uncomfortably under my iron grip. Her soul starts playing all sorts of rapid, chaotic notes, so I give it a hug too. Eep, she squeaks, in one of the most amazingly un-Penelope-like sounds I have ever heard. What are you doing? Soul hug, I inform her simply, looking up at her amusingly red face. I have no idea how to handle the things she's currently feeling, though. Maybe the hug wasn't the best plan. Whatever Vita expected to be doing this morning, it sure wasn't hurling head over heels through an unknown void. Like getting sucked down a river, she tumbled uncontrollably, no memory of how she got here and no idea where here even was. Time seemed to have no meaning here, space was nothing but a force pulling her along. She'd given up struggling, spending her time pulling mana into and out of her soul. What else was there to do? Only when she was unceremoniously dumped into the middle of a field, landing face first in the grass, did she come back to her senses. And then the voices start. Ding! Welcome to Palos. Name, Vita. Race, N equals. Age, 16. Time remaining on system locks, -72 for 35:53:22. Ding! Congratulations. You've survived your early years, and the system is now fully unlocked for you. Ooh! We finally caught one, a sing-song voice announced. What is this thing? Another voice grumbled. You were supposed to get a human. This is a human. I don't think it is. Who's there? Vita shouted, trying to feel around. But there was nothing. No souls, anywhere. It felt like she was still in the void. Ding! Congratulations. You've earned your first class, Child of Nothing, Mist. Child of Nothing, a starter class for EP10. UZ9L. A/UNWA, Goubert. +4 free stat points per level. Ding! Congratulations. Child of Nothing has leveled up to level 1-8. +4 free stat points per level from your class, +10 mana for your race per level, +1 speed and +1 dexterity from your element per level. Ding! Congratulations. You can now advance your class. Class? What's a class? Vita growled, standing up to look around. Who is saying all this? Where am I? Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Observe. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Identify. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Meditate. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Lying. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Conning. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Stealing. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Walking. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Running. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Climbing. Ow! Ow, stop dinging. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Gymnastics. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Throwing. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Dodging. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Pull Arms. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Jumping. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Spotting. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Survival. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Knives. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Combat Reflexes. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Poison Resistance. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Pain Resistance. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Food Prep. What is this? Stop yelling at me. Ah, the poor thing is confused, the first voice tittered. We should probably just choose for her, the second commented. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Mood Detection. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Lie Detection. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Food Detection. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Stomach Capacity. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Monster Muncher. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Corruption. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Blasphemy. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Cannibalism. Ding! You've unlocked the general skill, Pedicide. Pedicide. Vita snapped. Really? You want that one? Asked the first voice. Well, I'm not sure. It will come in handy, but if you insist. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Vigilant. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Adaptable. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Active. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Learning. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Loyal. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Dedicated. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Intimidating. Ding. You've unlocked the passive skill, Cute. Error. Skill selection override. Right, well, we're choosing Pedicide and she'll probably need polearms, the second voice mumbled. Stealing, the first voice insisted. Stealing is fun. Right, okay, stealing probably survival. Oh, and loyal, we should make her loyal. Give her corruption. We are not giving her corruption. We're already going to be in trouble for this. Conning, then. Everyone loves a good con. I can't wait to see what she does with that. Right, conning. And intimidating, in case she gets delayed. And cute. There was a pause. You want her to be intimidating and cute? Yes. Shut up and show yourselves. Vita shouted furiously, finally scrambling to her feet. At least all her gear was intact, even if something seemed to be blocking her soul sense. She looked up, down, left, right, trying to find the source of the voices. She felt nothing, but everywhere she looked things just seemed more wrong. A bright blue sky, devoid of even a single floating stone. Some kind of super bright pain orb floated up there instead, causing suffering whenever she tried to look at it. Show ourselves, one of the sing-song voices cooed, high-pitched yet oddly androgynous. You'll never see us if you merely look around. Because we're on top of your head, squeaked the other, suddenly leaning down over Vita's face. Ack. Vita jumped, smacking at her scalp as the two giggling creatures leaped off her head and fluttered into the sky, buzzing around her. They looked like tiny, doll-size humanoids, naked yet genderless, dashing about on dragonfly wings as they laughed at Vita's ineffectual attempts to swat them. Where am I? She demanded. What do you want with me? This one does not listen to the system, one giggled. Foolish, foolish. You must listen to survive here. You are on Palos. We brought you here to send you on a grand quest. The grandest of quests. Atop the spire of stone, a treasure unmatched in beauty and worth awaits. In the direction of the setting sun you will find it guarded by a beast most foul. Most hungry. Most vile. There, you will slay the creature and claim your prize. Only then will the champion be sent home. Seriously, this could not make any less sense. Vita was becoming increasingly convinced that she was hallucinating, possibly under some sort of cognomancy spell. Two tiny, flying, riddle-talking bug people definitely pushed things well over the cliff of possibility. The prize. The prize. We cannot claim the prize for the hero claims the prize, the two fairies sing, clasping hands and dancing in a circle in the air. The champion from beyond the world shall quest and seek the prize. Well, first, you go to sleep, one of the Fae answered, turning to face her with a grin. No, the Fae answers. Initiate class advancement. What is a error? Class advancement override. With a snap of the Fae's fingers, Vita found the ground flying forward to meet her once again, unconsciousness rapidly approaching. I told you we should have gotten one from Earth, the other Fae complained. They always pick these things up faster. Their companion responded. Call our sibling. We can do that too. Elaine groaned and rolled over in her sleep. She'd been missing home, and was sleeping with her mom's pendant in her hands. Peaceful sleep eluded her though, as she was tormented by nightmares. By failure, by death dealt to her friends and dealt by her own hand. Her hand tightened, like it was fighting the grip of someone strangling her, then loosened, dropping her pendant. 3 fairies popped in around her. She's unprotected. Get her. The one the size of a hummingbird yelled, pointing at Elaine. Just because you're the tallest, grumbled the short one, weaving her hands, dusting Elaine with power. Wait. The quest. We must tell her the quest. The tallest one, still hummingbird-sized, said. Oh right. Flowers. Gotta get the flowers. The middle one said. Idiot. You didn't make it into a riddle. The shortest one reprimanded, buzzing her wings with crossed arms. And now, I steal the sun, the middle one interrupted, snapping her fingers. Vanishing Elaine. Maybe we should have woken her up, before telling her the quest. The tallest one said, tapping her chin, then shrugging. Ah well. It's her fault for sleeping. Elaine woke up 4 feet off the ground, and falling fast. She cursed a foul invective, trying to activate Teleria, right before she landed. She hadn't slept with her sandals on though, so the skill failed to activate, dumping a surprised Elaine face first into the dirt. She immediately flipped up, on guard, ready to fight against whatever had attacked her. Being teleported around wasn't exactly a friendly move. She narrowed her eyes at the still and silent jungle around her, mentally noting that the sun was high in the sky. She'd been moved a long, long distance. Or massively slept in. No system notifications. Elaine felt her heartbeat pick up, as she quickly tried to check her status. She breathed a sigh of relief as it popped up. Just to make sure, she flickered through a few active skills really fast. Mantle, still worked, shine, still lit things up, and Elaine pointed up and fired off a Nova. Perfect. Her skills still worked. Her mind was entirely intact, this time. A bush rustled, and Elaine whirled around, seeing a human-sized dinosaur flying through the air towards her. Its feathers were broken and patchy, but its claws were long and its teeth were vicious. Bullet time activated as Elaine leaned back, firing a narrow beam of radiance through the raptor's head. It drilled through in an instant, but Elaine didn't get a kill notification. Cursing, she fired off a Nova, throwing up Mantle of the Stars, behind the skill, protected by a mystical wall of shimmering stars. Nova landed with a roaring explosion, blasting the raptor to pieces in a fiery, golden inferno, yet there was still no kill notification. How tough is that thing? Elaine cursed to herself as 5 more raptors leapt at her from the bush. 5 more headshots, no notifications, and Elaine blew another Nova, at point-blank range, swearing as her shield needed to protect her from her own skill as well, burning mana she couldn't afford to waste. Everything settled for a moment, and Elaine took a look around, seeing 6 burned and broken bodies laying on the earth jungle floor in pieces. Elaine picked the one that seemed to be in the most pieces, and piece by piece, started to incinerate it. Halfway through, it clicked. Puppets. Or body hijackers. Or zombies. Wait, it can't be body hijackers, they would have gotten killed. Spore jackers. Elaine threw her hands up in frustration. Either way. Not a living creature, no kill notifications. She moodily kicked one of the re-dead raptor's bodies. And no experience by the look of it. Great. Just great. She complained, continuing to talk to herself. Helped distract her from the fact that she had no idea where she was, or which way home was. Still, this was hardly the first time Elaine had been almost literally thrown into a jungle with no equipment to survive, so she didn't bother to waste any time panicking about it. A screech made Elaine turn her head, and immediately she saw dozens, if not hundreds of raptors storming across the jungle towards her. That part was new. Elaine started running away, to give herself more time and space against the raptors. She blindly fired Nova's behind her as fast as she could. It wasn't like she needed to aim to hit 5, 6, 7 of them at a time. As the dead started to fall, however, their master took notice. The explosions also helped get her attention. The heck sort of monster did they find? Vita mumbled to herself, planting a shard of her soul into yet another dinosaur corpse and feeling it spread throughout the inside like the branches of some ethereal tree. The body rose, her power flowing through it. The Dreg stood and waited for instruction. "Follow me and attack on my command," Vita ordered, drawing her spear. Each of the dozens of dinosaurs in earshot moved into formation, surrounding their master in as even a formation as possible. Voice of command, and coordinated horde, at work, she supposed. Dreg zombies were infuriatingly stupid, and back home they'd barely be able to walk without tripping over each other. This system stuff was definitely a bit weird and abstract, but Vita couldn't deny how helpful it was. Especially since, for some insane reason, nothing in this damn world had a soul. Her army was made out of dregs because she couldn't make anything but dregs. If not for the Horde Queen class, she'd be sunk. Her other class seemed like kind of a dud. More blinding explosions thundered nearby as Vita mounted a raptor zombie, riding it as her force approached. Anything capable of unleashing magic that powerful would easily overpower an unled section of her horde, but Vita was hardly above letting her minions tire whatever it was out, especially now that the system changed the stakes. Her entourage leaped over the half-vaporized bodies of her former minions, and she raised a hand. "Soul reclamation," Vita muttered, feeling a leap in power as the shattered dust of her broken shards spiraled towards her in a radiant swirl. At least she wouldn't lose any parts of herself invested in the dregs, even if they got smashed to dust. Still, Vita hated this damn world. There was nothing here she could feel with her soul sense. Nothing but her. Which was why she ended up so surprised to find a human shooting the explosive blasts at her army. Threat or potential ally? It probably depended on their opinion of animancy, considering that she was currently riding a zombie. Without her soul sense, Vita couldn't get a good handle on how powerful this armored kinemancer was, but the way she was tearing through the raptors like wet tissue paper felt like a pretty good hint. Just to be safe, she quietly sub-vocalized an order, letting voice of command carry it to her minions. Hidden zombie raptors started circling around to flank the human. If things went badly here, they'd be able to attack her from all sides. Given the wary distance she was keeping from the dregs, she wasn't a close-in fighter. Probably since she'd just blow herself up with whatever that offensive kinemancy spell was. The human noticed Vita, immediately identifying her as the source of the zombie raptor plague by merit of her riding one of them, and shouted her way. "Oi! You! Call off your raptors," she yelled. Oh, hey, she was talking. Vita decided to take that as a good sign. "Okay." Vita answered, glancing over at her attacking zombies. "Stand down." The raptors immediately halted in their tracks. Elaine blinked in surprise. That didn't usually work. A quick, long-range identify picked the girl up as a mage, maybe in the high 200 low 300 range. A potential threat, but unlikely to be a big one. Hi. I'm Elaine," she said, waving a hand but not coming closer. A cape, seemingly made out of stars, appeared on her back. "What's your name?" "Vita," the girl muttered in answer, not meeting Elaine's eyes. Getting a good look at her, Elaine realized this Vita seemed barely 13 years old, the poor thing. Although she was also armed and armored to the teeth and surrounded by an undead raptor army, so point in her favor there. None of her equipment seemed to be metal, though, for whatever reason. Maybe it was cultural, like the dwarves. "Vita. Cool. So do you know where this is, kiddo? I seem to have gotten yoinked again, and I have no idea how to get home." "I am pretty sure I have a soul," Elaine insisted, raising an eyebrow. It wasn't like she could have gotten flung through the ether and drop-kicked into Palos without one. "And, wait, are you from somewhere without a system?" "Oh man. Are you from Earth?" Vita blinked. You mean like the ground? Guess not, Elaine muttered to herself. World traveler. Gotta be more than one place. Plus, there was that whole mess with the fairies and those other people that one time. Elaine snapped her fingers. Fairies. Did any fairies do anything to you? Vida scowled. That depends. Are fairies like tiny assholes with bug wings that never answer any questions? Elaine looked more than a little nervous at that description. Fairies are wonderful people who simply enjoy a few harmless pranks now and then. Yup. Elaine locked eyes with Vida and slowly nodded twice. Or, she tried to lock eyes with Vida, but Vida seemed distracted, not looking in her direction. They're of the most perfect tiny size, she said, pinching her fingers together in roughly the size of a fairy. And they're the most beautiful, elegant, gorgeous people ever, with enough power to pull a half-dozen people from different planets into one spot for a practical joke. Aren't they just amazing? Elaine was slowly shaking her head at the last part, praying to Papillion and all the other gods and goddesses in the great sky above that this Vida would pick up the hint. Vida did not pick up the hint. No, can't be them, then, she concluded. Mine were annoying assholes. They stuck me with a bunch of dumb skills, talked like crazy people, and then I ended up getting attacked by whatever these things are. She motioned at her menagerie of undead dinosaurs. Elaine facepalmed. Right, what did your totally not fairies ask you to do? For all I know, they told me while I was asleep, and considered it fair game. Then again, this is still Palos, I could just try to find my way home normally, Elaine muttered to herself. Do you have any sandals on you? That is, certainly a question a person could ask someone that just attacked them with zombies, Vida thought to herself. I'm sure you are going to be shocked to learn that I do not, she deadpanned, kicking her legs lightly to show off her leather boots and greaves. Is that really an important question right now? Well, if by some miracle you did, I could fly and look around. Elaine said, as if acquiring sandals equaling flight was the most normal and reasonable thing possible. Guess I'll have to climb a tree instead. Okay, I'm a monkey. Vida blinked, not sure how to respond to that. Elaine was already halfway up the tree, moving far faster and more nimbly than Vida would have given her credit for. Do you not know what a sunset is? Elaine asked, as she slowly scanned the horizon. Do you not have a sun? Are you some sort of mole person, living under a planet? Is that why you're short? Elaine was finally taller than someone. Finally. Elaine slowly looked down at Vida. Mostly because she was still in the tree. She blinked. Elaine then just jumped out of the tree, nimbly slowing herself down with little flares of starlight steps that appeared under her feet. Huh, Vida muttered, watching the scintillating magical flares. You are a really powerful chiromancer, aren't you? Well, we don't have to walk if you don't want to. Feel free to pick a zombie, any zombie. She casts a hand out to indicate her horde of unblinking, unliving reptiles. I promise they don't bite. Unless you do anything stupid. Elaine shrugged. If they don't bite my head off, I'll be fine. I can just regrow stuff. Vida eyed Elaine, wondering exactly how that worked. Why would you tell me that? Also, wouldn't you just starve if I had them keep biting you? Maybe, but you'd have to bite me a lot. I'm pretty mana efficient. But where do you get the mass from? It's created from mana. Vida's eyes went wide. What? That was incredible. The possibilities were endless. How efficient is it? She asked excitedly. If you cut off your arm and then eat your arm, is that enough food to regrow your arm again? Less. More. I bet if we chopped off enough of your body parts and I hid soul shards in them we could create a mass enslavement trap zone. What about blood loss? Do you get dehydrated? Can you create water too? Oh shit, I'm so happy I found you. I thought I was going to starve out here. Elaine looked at the raptors they were riding on, and back at Vida. Starve? Really? She asked with a quirked eyebrow. Also, I'm attached to my body parts. Pun intended. Yes, I can regrow more. No, I don't plan to lose an arm. Even if it's for Elaine stumbled over good cause, because really, she couldn't see it that way. Let me be an endlessly regrowing food source for the hungry offworlder was low down on her to-do list, no matter how friendly and disarming said offworlder might be. Of course I'd starve, I don't recognize any of these plants and I don't know the meat-treating spell, Vita explained, as if that were some common sort of thing. Although I guess you have a good point. If you're a strong enough biomancer to regrow limbs mid-combat and form matter out of mana, which I thought was impossible, but I'm assuming it's one of these weird skill things, you probably can make meat safe. We can eat one of the zombies if you want. Hey! She pointed at one of the raptors and snapped her fingers. Head to that lady over there, rip your arm off, and give it to her, would you? Elaine's eyes bugged out as the raptor did exactly that, a sick tearing sound echoing between the trees as the arm's bones and tendons were ripped out of the shoulder. It politely offered her the morsel with its remaining forelimb. Thank you. For your arm. Elaine managed to choke out, minding her manners. She held the arm up, and let golden, burning light emit from her hand to the arm, starting to cook it. Why are you doing that? Is that your meat prep magic? Vita asked. No, this is cooking it. Because I like cooked food. Meat's generally safe to eat, except for parasites, bacteria, possibly prion if you're real unlucky. Cooking handles almost all of those. Ascaris, listeria, salmonella, and probably a dozen different tropical diseases I don't know about. Never heard of any of that. What about heat-resistant magical diseases? Vita asked seriously. Elaine shrugged. A possibility. Worst case, I'll just heal myself, she said, taking a huge bite of roasted raptor wing. Tastes like chicken. Hey. Give me some. Vita complained, spurring her riding raptor closer. Sure, here you go. Elaine said, handing over the roasted arm. Let me know if you want any healing. Sure, I'll take free healing. Mom always said to take everything free you can and to never piss off the healer. Or was that, make everything free? It works either way. Elaine looked at Vita, amused. Gotta eat the arm first before I try healing you of any problems the arm can cause, yeah? Oh, right. Vita took a brief moment to decide whether trusting this random stranger was worth eating zombie flesh over, immediately decided that yes, obviously it was, and chowed down on the chicken wing. Raptor arm. Right. Healing please. Vita said. Elaine just glanced at Vita, making sure both were in sunlight, then her jaw dropped. What the hell, she yelled. Are you even human? Healing you just drained every drop of mana I had. Elaine seemed to check something floating in the air, then did a double take. And what's up with my mana regeneration? You are human, right? Vita shrugged, taking a moment to swallow her zombie flesh. Depends on who you ask, she answered frankly. Why do you care? I thought you said you were something called a monkey. Because my healing has efficiency factors. If I can imagine what I'm doing. More efficient. If I'm closer to you, or touching you. More efficient. If I'm healing something small, rather than large. Less mana. The more human someone is, the more efficient I am. Restoring an arm takes a few thousand points. For an internal bacterial problem that might not even be there. Elaine leaned in, intensely studying Vita, drinking up every detail about her. Over 100,000 mana gone in an instant. Vita. Are you sure your system says you're human? Vita frowned, following Elaine's lead and glancing at something invisible in the air. My race category just says a bunch of gibberish characters. I just thought the whole thing was broken or something, though. I mean, my mana is listed with a period and an E and shit like that. Not even real numbers. Elaine's mouth opened, paused, and closed again. Open. Pause. Close. Yeah, okay, I'm going to call the race thing a bug and say that's why healing you is so inefficient, she said. Don't lose an arm or anything, I'm not sure I can regrow it. What about my mana? Elaine shuddered. Please tell me the numbers after the E are small. Please. She begged. It says 9.45377E, 43. And my mana regen is negative 1,000 something. Elaine just shook her head. Right. Negative mana regen can kill you, if you let your mana get to 0. That'll happen for you in. Elaine twitched her fingers a few times. I stopped counting at a few trillion years. You'll be fine. That's a long time, Vita opined. But you said it was just broken, right? The race sounds like a bug. The mana? Elaine shuddered, changing the topic. How about we get a move on to that ziggurat? Also, do you have some sort of mana regeneration buff? My numbers are going crazy. Vita shrugs. I think so. My Infinity Beyond the Veil skill might be doing that. Kind of a pretentious name, right? Whatever brought me here picked all my classes and skills without giving me a say in the matter, so I'm not totally sure what everything does. This, Maw of Mana, class seemed totally pointless since people can't run out of mana anyway, but I guess you can. I bet that sucks. Also, how come it's purple? Elaine gave Vita a look. Okay, so maybe the girl was a lot stronger than her level let on. So about telling me where you're from? Oh, right, I mean, I don't know if there's much to say. I'm from Verdantop Island. Country of Valka. Elaine answers Vita with the kind of flat, blank look that made it clear she'd never heard of those places. Have you heard of either of those places? Vita asked anyway. Elaine sighed. The girl was more than a little strange, not picking up on expressions, only rarely emoting, and never making eye contact. She was probably somewhere on the autism spectrum. That had to be wretched in the type of medieval society that the girl's equipment seemed to imply she was from. No. I have not, Elaine clarified. You mentioned something about the sky being the wrong color and not knowing what the sun is, so I imagine we're from different worlds entirely. Yeah, my sky is yellow, Vita confirmed. And all the other islands are visible above, while you guys have nothing. It's weird. Is this not like one of the top islands, or something? Oh. Maybe it is. Maybe you guys can run out of mana because we're super far away from the Mistwatcher. See, now it's my turn to ask you what that is, Elaine prompted. It's the big mass of eyeballs and tentacles tens of thousands of miles across that you see when you go to the edge and look down. And gives people souls, though I guess you don't have one. I still definitely do, Elaine protested, though Vita ignored her. Still, a mass of eyeballs and tentacles tens of thousands of miles across. What the hell? What kind of insane Lovecraft world is this girl from? Also, the planet we're on has no edge. What happens when you walk in one direction forever then? Vita asked instantly, since obviously there had to be an edge somewhere. Maybe they just hadn't found it. You end up back in the same spot, Elaine answered easily, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Vita hesitated, wanting to argue more, but decided to leave it be. As long as she never saw the edge, what did it matter to her? So okay, maybe we're not orbiting around the Mistwatcher at all, Vita admitted hesitantly. But what does that mean? Where are we? Is this your world? I think so, Elaine said. Although we're a long way from where I'm used to. This world is called Palos. Oh. Yeah, Palos. That's where the naked flying assholes said I am. Elaine winced. Please, please stop calling them that, she begged. We really do not want to make them mad. Vida frowned, looking around. I guess I need them to get home, so that's fair. Do you think they're listening to us? She asked. Gods, I hope not, Elaine thought to herself. Instead of answering, she spurred her raptor on, trying to make it go faster. The lifeless construct reacted by, not reacting at all. You okay there? Vida asked. Are you trying to make it go faster? Let me. Speed up. The raptor Elaine was on shot off, and she swore as she tried to keep a grip. Raptors weren't exactly made for riding, nor was Vida any sort of master, leatherworker, able to make a saddle. Vida didn't need one. The dregs carried her with unnatural grace, like she was some sort of royalty, and she seemed utterly unbothered by the bareback journey. Dropping Vida? Literally unthinkable. Mostly due to a lack of brainpower. Elaine's butt was not so lucky, but what was ranger training for if not being flexible enough to ride a zombie dinosaur? As they traveled, making small talk, comparing notes about the 2-3 worlds they knew about, Vida's undead horde grew. Zombie raptors jumped and tore apart other, lesser creatures, bringing the kills to Vida like a particularly proud gaggle of cats. Vida didn't even seem to glance at the bodies, but each one brought to her was soon reanimated into her service. Monkeys and snakes, raptors and the occasional crocodile, beasts from the Paleozoic to Cambrian era all joined Vida's ever-growing swarm. I could totally get used to not having to do all the heavy lifting for once. Elaine thought with wide eyes, seeing the numbers grow. At the same time, should I be stopping this? If Vida turns on me, I can't handle that many monsters at once. Especially since I'm pinned to the ground. I should totally ask her to cook another raptor for me, Vida thought. Hey, can you cook another raptor for me? She then asked, hardly one to let anything get between thoughts of food and the potential acquisition of food. Sure, but can it start off dead? Like, not moving dead? And not ripping its own arm off? Elaine shuddered. Sure, I guess, Vida answered, shrugging slightly. Stop moving. At Vida's order, the entire raptor horde promptly froze like someone had taken a photograph and made it reality. Elaine nearly flew off her mount at the sudden halt, but held on. Glassy-eyed frozen raptors surrounded her in every direction. Take your pick. Vida told her happily. Elaine face-bombed, but figured this was the best she was going to get, not without another long, awkward conversation. Raptor or something else? Elaine asked, noting the wide variety of animals in the horde. Raptors were the dominant species, but there was enough variety if Vida was feeling spicy. I'm the furthest thing from picky, Vida answered. I'll eat anything you cook. Elaine was getting ideas. Terrible, terrible ideas. How hungry are you? Yes, Vida answered, without a hint of humor. Mind if we eat more than one of your, creatures? Elaine was still struggling with zombie. I will eat anything you cook for me. Elaine had a brilliant grin split her face. Right. One jungle smorgasbord coming right up, she said, deftly navigating through the horde, playing Discount Noah. Instead of 2 of each animal for an arc, it was 1 of each animal for the fire pit. Vida watched with enraptured attention, a grin widening on her face with each animal Elaine selected. How hungry are you, exactly? Vida asked. You like eating monsters too? My team always thought it was gross. Elaine shrugged. Using mana, well, technically, regenerating mana, is hungry work. I've been away from towns, in the wilderness often enough to just not be picky. When it's do or die, eat or starve. Everything looks like food. Ha! Most of my experience starving has been in the towns. Elaine patted Vida in what she imagined was a comforting way, though Vida mostly just stiffened up at the touch. Well, don't worry about it. I'll make sure you're well fed here. She said, expertly burning through dino joints and roasting each piece one-handedly, then handing it off to Vida. The other hand already had a hot, greasy raptor wing, as Elaine tore into it between words. We're friends now, Vida declared, and immediately started tearing into the food with startling speed. The impromptu barbecue continued until the pain orb, air, sun, fell, both young women displaying appetites far outside their weight class. Vida watched with awe at the growing sunset, her childlike face morphing into the greatest display of emotion Elaine had seen on her since they met. What is that? Oh, wow. It's like giant blotches of flower colors in the sky, she announces, raising a grasping hand as if trying to touch one. Elaine glanced over, and with a lazy wave, summoned a mantle of the stars, next to Vida. For closer looking. Elaine said, eyes up at the endlessly spiraling stars above winking into view as the sun finishes passing over the horizon. Whoa. You're right, the sky is just going dark, Vida whispered, idly pawing at the mantle. Where's that thing you talked about? Your kinda sky island. The moon. It'll come. Just give it time. This is so cool. I still can't believe all the light in your world comes from such a tiny ball. And now all these white dots. Vida stared open-mouthed at the sky, for once her hidden, inner eye being the one of her three incapable of seeing an otherworldly beauty. Utterly entranced, a look of childlike joy and wonder on her face as she tried to trace the stars above, count them, understand them via any sort of equivalent from her world yet coming up empty. And then she saw the moon. Moons. 2 full moons rose above the horizon, washing the land in their baleful red light. 2 moons, with crimson irises and slitted pupils, looking anything like a pair of eyes, overlords of the world looking down upon all the puny mortals below them. A snake, freezing a mouse in its gaze. A dragon, watching the world she owned from above. The dragon eye moons. For a fraction of an instant, Vida froze, her breath gone. Then an overwhelming terror consumed her features, and she bolted, trying to hide from the sky behind a tree. Calm down. Calm down. Breathe. Elaine said, sliding next to Vida. Okay, talk to me. What's wrong? What's here? They're just the moons. They're not going to hurt you. Elaine mentally had a dozen asterisks on that particular statement, but the general idea was correct. Like, if some crazy high-level gravity mage decided to pull them into the planet, yeah, they could hurt, and it could be possible to do. But that was for another day. Elaine was struck with inspiration as Vida continued to freak out. She layered, mantle of the stars, over her gourmet companion, then lit up with, shine. See? It can't see you now. Just stars and light here. Elaine tried to soothe Vida. That's the eye the Mistwatcher used to look at me. Vida squeaked, her tone suggesting not only terror but the revelation of some grand secret. If it glances my way again I might cause another perception event. What's a perception event, and the Mistwatcher is the big thing from your world, right? Elaine asked. She didn't wait for an answer. Look, I have it on good authority that those moons have been there for over 4,000 years. They're just rocks, created by mad gods and goddesses. Yes. The Mistwatcher is a god. It's the god. And it has at least one eye which looks like that. Elaine debated telling Vida about her experiences with gods and being in the realm of the gods, and how gods tended to stay there, and not really go to Palos. Not unless a divine miracle was requested. She skipped all that, and thought about how Vida described the place she lived. You normally avoid its eyes? By being on the island, right? Elaine asked to confirm. Sure, but I have an easy solution. Let's bury you in dirt and mud. Then it can't see you. Elaine said matter-of-factly. There was no reasoning someone out of a position they hadn't reasoned themselves into, and Elaine wasn't about to try and play therapist to Vida, and convince her that the moons were harmless. For all Elaine knew, they weren't actually harmless, given their unnatural state and complete and total not how moons should be ness, but that was neither here nor there. She just needed Vida to get through the night, and one night at a time she'd come round, or they'd be done with whatever bullshit the Fae wanted them to do this time. I have no idea if that will work, Vida said hesitantly, and if it doesn't work, you, me, and everything remotely nearby is gonna get annihilated by a 10,000-mile-long tentacle. Okay, do you have any other ideas how to not get annihilated? I know. I don't know. It's in the sky. It's not supposed to be in the sky. Maybe a cave. I don't know if a layer of dirt will do much, but I'd feel safer with solid rock between us. Elaine frowned, then brightened up. I've got an idea. She said. Can you let me command the zombies? Vida nodded. Queen's commander, she murmured, uncurling slightly and poking Elaine in the thigh. Necromancer, Elaine in the house. Not where I expected to be a day ago, but hey, that's life. Right. You, and you, I need those 3 trees cut down and moved to the side. You, and you. Bring back wood. You and you, find stone. You 4, cover Vida, don't let the eyes see her. You dash. Elaine started to efficiently bark out orders, like she'd been trained to do it for years. She was used to intelligent rangers though, not the near-mindless dregs. Some of her commands were interpreted in interesting ways. No, not like that. Elaine cried out, grabbing her hair in frustration as a raptor brought her a stick the size of her finger. Big wood. Like the trees. Still, with much frustration, grumbling, ordering and reordering, Elaine's vision started to come to unlife. Charitably, it could be called a giant pile of logs and sticks. Here. Crawl inside. Elaine said, as it started to come together. It'll shield you from the eyes in the sky, and we'll keep making it bigger and thicker while you're inside. Keep you safe. Elaine lasered the leg off of one particularly bad at following commands raptor, fried it, and passed it to Vida. Here, have a bite while you wait, Elaine offered. I am getting way too used to lasering meat off of moving creatures. Vida, for her part, just grabbed the food between her teeth, nodding a quick thank you before scurrying into shelter. From her perspective, hiding behind a tree hadn't gotten her killed yet, so hiding behind a structure of trees should hopefully work the same. Elaine kept working for hours, building the fort larger and larger, hoping that it wouldn't all collapse on itself. She occasionally threw in more pieces of the unhelpful raptor into the center, where a scrawny arm would dart out to grab it and drag it into its maw. Finally, Elaine felt like she'd done enough. She roasted the last few pieces of the raptor, told the rest to guard, and crawled in herself. Hey. It's going to be okay, Elaine said, lying down next to Vida. It's all going to be okay. Elaine closed her eyes. Vida nodded numbly. Well, if it isn't, at least we'll probably die instantly before getting our souls eaten, she muttered. Elaine didn't hear her. She was fast asleep. Wow. She passed out fast, Vida mumbled to herself. When day finally rose, Vida still hadn't managed to do the same. Elaine yawned and stretched, her sleepy eyes going to instantly bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as she applied, sunrise, to herself. Good morning. How did you sleep? Did the hut help? I hope it helped. It took me and the dinosaurs ages to do. Well. You would know. You were watching. Hoof. I need to go burn off some energy. Then let's get to that ziggurat and figure out what those fairies want. Let's go. Vida blinked the tiredness out of her eyes, mentally cursing Elaine several different ways. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if a perception event happens now if it spares me her early morning energy. I want a soul. I miss souls. I wish I could eat one to keep me awake, but this stupid place doesn't have any. Vita was still trying to muster the strength to get up when Elaine popped back into the hut, brimming with energy. Oh! I almost forgot. Here's a snake skewer. One of the zombies got it last night. And a pick-me-up. Elaine tapped Vita, pulsing, sunrise, through her. A jolt of energy shot through Vita, waking her up faster and more thoroughly than anything she'd ever experienced before. Sunrise. Elaine happily told Vita. My energy pick-me-up go forever skill. Never leave home without it. She laughed like she made the best joke ever. Vita didn't see how it was that funny, but she couldn't deny it was useful. Either way, between the food, the stream, and the zombie raptor transportation, Vita and Elaine were off towards the ziggurat in no time. The horde grew fatter than Vita's and Elaine's waistlines, the most impressive part of which was that said waistlines actually managed to grow a little after their legendary barbecue. Each of them seemed remarkably incapable of putting on pounds. They spent the time luxuriously being carted around, feasting on the bounty of the jungle delivered practically to their mouths. Then, like a particularly small, fast, brightly colored and tasty bird, they were delivered to the foot of the ziggurat. It looked old, an ancient relic from before time began. Given the relatively young age of Palos, that was entirely possible. The temple was overgrown with vines, the stone cracking. Each step was bigger than Elaine was tall, and the ziggurat seemed to soar endlessly towards the heavens, which wasn't at all what it looked like from a distance. Now what? Vita asked, more annoyed and impressed by the structure. Elaine shrugged. If it was easy, the fairies wouldn't send us to do it, would they? From what you told me about the tiny assholes, yes they would. Because it'd be funny. Elaine tilted her head, conceding the point. This has all seemed too easy so far, but zombies first. Elaine asked. Yeah, sure, they're all replaceable. Vita agreed. But where's the entrance? Vita and Elaine looked around, not seeing anything. They circled the ziggurat, only seeing the giant steps repeated all around. Elaine looked at the overly large stairs, big enough that only Vita standing on Elaine's shoulders would be able to crawl up. One step. There had to be hundreds. What's the bet that the entrance is on the top of the ziggurat? Elaine asked rhetorically. She knew the answer. It was on the top. It was always on the top. Vita sighed, silently agreeing. What a pain. Still, painful problems were. What zombies were for. With a few quick, snappy directions, 3 zombies, 2 raptors standing on each other and a third in front of them formed a climbable step that Vita and Elaine ascended up the first stair, enough of the horde following to make a second step and then a third and so on. The dregs were not kind to their fellows, and the crushing, shambling footfalls of a zombie horde crawling on top of one another required the steps to be frequently replaced as they got periodically pounded into meat mush. Still, eventually the majority of the horde managed to reach the top. When only the zombies forming the stairs remained, Vita simply used soul reclamation to kill them all from a distance, leaving the unfortunate dinosaurs left behind to collapse back into restful death. Again. Turning back towards the entrance, the pair saw that the top of the ziggurat was filled with statues, pillars, and more. A giant golden bell, somehow whole despite the tests of time and the elements, stood proudly in the middle, over the largest statue. Cracked stone with hardy vines that had somehow grown through the literal mountain worth of stone were interspersed with little yellow flowers that gently blew in the breeze. Pillars in various states of ruin and decay were scattered in neat columns along the top, clearly having performed some ceremonial purpose once upon a time. Statues of Suchia, each statue large enough for Vita and Elaine to comfortably rest in their enormous crocodilian mouths, lined the edges of the ziggurat. They were all facing the centerpiece of the ziggurat, a gigantic monstrous statue, depicting some part Suchia, part fish, part frog with toothy mouths on its shoulders, knees, elbows, and a few other random spots. Wow! Elaine breathed, gazing around the sights. This is quite something. She walked forward, looking at each statue for a moment before moving on to the next one. Yeah, that thing almost has as many mouths as the Mistwatcher's soul. Vita agreed, eyeing the statue in the middle. It's also sucking my mana. I can see it with Eye of the Maw. Elaine paled. That's not made out of arcanite, she realized. So? Vita asked, glancing around the ancient temple with disinterest. So only living things and arcanite get mana, she yelled. Vita blinked. So it's edible? That's not the right question. Elaine snapped, running back to the stairs. A deafening roar from a dozen different types of mouths burst out behind them, as the Sepakli statue started to chase after the latest offerings brought to its altar. Attack while we climb. Vita ordered the remains of her horde, suddenly changing direction. Without hesitation, Elaine switched from running back to the two large stairs to climbing one of the large pillars with Vita. They scrambled up while the zombies died in droves, seemingly incapable of even scratching the monstrous Sepakli. Elaine's ascent was boosted by her stats, dexterity making sure she never put a foot wrong, speed helping her hands quickly move from place to place, strength letting her haul herself up sooner, and vitality tying it all together. Vita had stats, but also something beyond them as well. It almost looked like Vita was a puppet, her limbs getting pulled around by some force that couldn't possibly be her muscles. Elaine figured there were more pressing things at the moment than worrying about it, though, even as Vita handily beat Elaine to the top. The monster roared, and crashed into the stone column, trying to shake Elaine and Vita loose. The two clung onto each other and the top of the pillar, holding on. Think you can handle it? Vita asked Elaine, deathly calm as she stared down from her perch. Instead of responding, Elaine fired a Nova down at the monster, following it up with a beam of radiance, trying to burn through its eye. Nifty. Vita commented, as Elaine unleashed a burning inferno directly at the furious beast for 10 seconds non-stop. Then, abruptly, she stopped. What? I'm out of mana. Vita shrugged, as if this could not be any less of a problem. Take some of mine. It was like a second sun erupted on top of the ziggurat, as Elaine, finally unconstrained by pesky little things like running out of mana, was able to unleash her full, unlimited arsenal. Nova's were dropped and exploded, looking like an entire galaxy worth of stars was exploding at once. Beams of radiance mixed with cones and balls, widespread auras and surgical lasers. The air itself started to become uncomfortably hot with the sheer amount of heat and energy that bled off from the attacks. The stones blackened and cracked under the heat, and both Elaine and Vita started doing the floor is lava and my feet are cooking dance. Didn't stop Elaine in the slightest. The Sepakli roared, angered that the sacrifices brought to it were resisting, trying to tear down the sturdy pillar. In its boredom, it had knocked down and smashed most of the pillars on top of the ziggurat that it could. The architects, so long ago, had built the temple well, and what remained wasn't so easily brought down. Especially when being cooked alive. Eventually, the creature, used to being treated as a god, decided to stop sticking around and turn to flee. Oh, no you don't, Vita growled. Quit shooting for a sec. Without waiting for an answer, Vita lets herself fall from the pillar before suddenly kicking off of it, shooting towards the fleeing many-mouthed monster like a javelin. She hit its spear first, to basically no effect on its stat-boosted crocodilian hide. Vita! Elaine yelped in surprise, barely avoiding frying her with a stray Nova. What are you doing? Just let it go. Ignoring her, Vita instead pulled out a huge fragment of her own soul, grinning as she pressed it into the body of the monster. With no soul of its own, or at least with nothing that Vita considered a soul for her purposes, nothing stopped her shard from spreading through the monster as if it was just another corpse. Her power strained against the living body's muscles, causing the enormous beast to twitch and spasm as entirely different forms of movement went to war inside it. All right. Vida shouted back to Elaine, leaping off the monster. Now hit it with everything you've got. As big as it gets. What skill is that? Elaine asked, charging up the mother of all, Nova. This thing is way too high level to get crippled by one tap of just anything. Vida shrugged, scrambling back up the pillar. No skill, she said. Just part of me. Although I guess if you want to blame a skill for that trick. Elaine didn't wait for Vida to finish talking before unleashing the rest of her arsenal at once, the combination of seemingly limitless mana regen, prep time, and a mostly stationary target being all she needed to annihilate the temple owner once and for all. I would say, Soul Reclamation, is the one I like most, Vida finished, activating the skill and recovering her lost power. Back home I can't get free refunds. The aftermath of the fight left little standing in what was once an altar to the ex-divine beast. So now what? Vida asked, looking at the stones. They were so hot they were warping the air, making the floor look wavy. She could feel her skin start to crack, having nowhere near as much heat resistance as the woman who regularly shot lasers. Elaine shrugged. What did the fairies want? They just said to slay the creature and claim the prize. Didn't say what the prize is, though. Elaine facepalmed. Of course. Of course. It's never easy with them. She looked around the room, trying to spot what this elusive prize could possibly be. Maybe the bell. The enormous golden bell in the center of the room indeed looked like quite the prize. Vida's eyes went wide. Yeah, why don't we just grab everything up here, just in case? Elaine suggested. Maybe it's one of the statues. Or vines. Or pillars. Or one of the flowers. Vida said, picking one up that somehow, miraculously, survived the scorching inferno Elaine had unleashed on top of the ziggurat. 3 tiny flying assholes popped in around Vida the moment she grabbed the flowers. The flowers. The flowers. One cheered. She got the flowers. She wins. The second one cackled. Plant genitals. Just the thing. The third one swooped in and grabbed the flower from Vida. Ew, said Vida, wrinkling her nose. So, I guess I got your prize. Do I get a prize? Yes, of course. One said. You can see my tonsils. A most rare and valuable prize. You're what now? Elaine facepalmed. The back of her throat. That's dumb. Elaine cringed at that, while the fairy laughed in Vida's face. Too slow. You had the chance to see, and you did not. Like that, your prize vanishes. If you guys had souls, I would shatter them, Vida grumbled. From me, I give you courage. The next fairy said. No more will you fear to walk in the jungle. No more will you cower in your home. Vida frowned. I'm a hunter. I already regularly go into the forest. She pointed out. Plus, didn't you see what I did to this jungle? The fairy giggled. See? The best gift ever. Elaine was coming round to Vida's way of thinking. Complete assholes and would kill if I could. From me, the fairy paused for dramatic effect, before realizing. Hey! You jerks, let me go last. He complained at the other two, who giggled at his misfortune. Too slow. The first one said, zipping around him. Lazy bum, the second one sang. He just grumbled. Go home. He yelled at Vida, who popped out of existence. Elaine's eyes bugged out. If it's not too much trouble, she said. The first fairy sneered at her. You're already home. Go fly back. I can't fly. I didn't bring my sandals. Elaine complained before being struck by inspiration. Hang on. Send me back, and I'll tell you a secret, she said, dreading making a deal with the Fae, but not. Seeing too many other options. Besides spending decades trying to get out of the place. Fairies liked secrets, right? Oh. A secret. Tell me, tell me. No, tell me. Elaine held up a finger. Ah. Send me back first, then I'll tell you the secret, she insisted. The secret will be mine. One of the Fae yelled, popping Elaine back to her home. Okay, now tell me the secret, the Fae demanded the empty air. There was, of course, no response. Hello. I'd like my secret now. There you two are. Nora runs our way as soon as Penelope and I enter the guild hall, giving us a friendly wave. Everyone else is with the boss already. It looks like our mission this time is going to be real big. Of course it's big, Penelope scoffs. Every mission is going to be big with a third of the guild dead. The singing lady told me we're going after that talking hive rock monster we let get away last time, I say. I sure hope if that's true, we aren't going alone. We don't really have the firepower to put that thing down. Oh, I wouldn't worry about firepower this time, Nora answers with a grin, leading us into the room where everyone else is standing. I assume she means that the 3 super powerful souls inside are going to be part of our team. I'm definitely a fan of that, any of them feel like they could match that creepy monster on their own. I recognize them, though I'm not exactly sure from where. One soul like a dark whirlpool, another a glow of pure heat, and the last one feels like some sort of bladed pastry. A sword cake. I like that one's my favorite. Welcome Penelope, Vita, the branch leader says, opening his arms to us in greeting. This is Alan, Matteo, and Netta. Your teams are going to be joining each other for this mission. We've met, Penelope dismisses. We were all in here to decide distribution on the last mission, remember? Please make sure you're getting enough sleep, Corin. Who's Corin? I ask. Everyone in the room turns to stare at me. That would be me, the branch leader says. Oh. That makes sense. Orville, how is your team still alive? The Whirlpool Soul person says. Netta, I'm guessing, since I think Alan and Matteo are boys' names. She's much more competent in the forest than she is in a conversation, Master, Orville answers, diligently coming to my defense. Vita, what's your sensory range up to? About 750 yards, I answer immediately. Wait, the heat-souled man says. Before the last mission I explicitly remember you saying 450. Yeah, that's right, I agree, staring at him blankly. I improved. I'm hoping to get up to 800 this trip. Vita recently got reprimanded for spending a few days in the forest alone, Nora adds, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. She's a genius hunter. Don't worry about the vacant expression. Vacant expression? I ask. Wait a minute, I got reprimanded. You receive less pay the days you're in city but don't report in, the branch leader, Corin, I guess, answers. New policy. Do I at least get a cut from that pentapede hide I brought back? He sighs. Yes. You do. But anyway, regarding your actual mission, it's clear that our traditional team compositions are no longer effective against the current threat. So we are switching to a new strategy where we combine multiple complementary teams into larger forces that take on fewer missions. It's not ideal, but we need to focus on success rates even with the dire number of missions coming in at once. I won't lie to you, we have been getting crushed out there. Templar squads are coming back barely intact, and the king is considering placing us in a state of war and mobilizing the army. Your mission is fairly simple, find and slay the monster that killed Second Lord and Second Lady Tafton in New Talsi, as well as every damn Vrothizo between here and there. Everyone except Penelope and I nod in affirmation. I glance in her direction, quickly realizing that she doesn't want to vocally admit that she also has no idea what that word is. What's a Vrothizo? I ask. It's the name of the evolving creatures from Hive Rock, the branch leader answers. Apparently one of the off-island traders recognized them, and they had very bad news for us. Not only do these monsters grow fast, but they breed fast too. The larger they are, the more eggs the females can lay. So we're dealing with a potentially exponential threat here. It is imperative that you seek out and slay as many of them as possible. We all nod. I'm not sure how to feel about this revelation. On one hand, more food for me. On the other, well, I just wish the food wasn't so frighteningly competent at biting back. These Rothizo are capable of damaging souls, which really puts me on the back foot against them compared to every other kind of monster. As dangerous as they are, however, my plan doesn't really change. I'm going to outgrow them. I won't let them stand in my way. Shall we head out, then? Mr. Swordcake Soul asks. Or does anyone have something they need to take care of before we leave? If you have any loved ones, it may be a good idea to visit them, just in case. I'm good, Orville grunts, glancing up at Netta. My mom's on the way, if that's all right, Nora says. We live on one of the farms outside the walls, I think it's the same direction. I should definitely go say goodbye. Bentley insists. I'll be right back, I promise. In that case, I should go apologize to my girlfriend, Fire Soul Guy sighs. I won't be long either. They run off, the rest of us exiting the room somewhat more slowly after them. What about you, Vita? Nora asks. Gonna go visit the kiddos? Nah, I shrug. I'll be back to see them afterwards. It's best not to be overconfident, Cake Soul says. Any of us could end up in the Mistwatcher's clutches before mission's end. You should meet him without regrets, if it comes to that. I snort incredulously, not bothering to respond. Vita isn't exactly what you'd call religious, Penelope tells him, chuckling lightly. And neither am I. We have no intentions to end up dead, and I've no one to tell anyway. We won't hold you up. Now Penny, I expect that from, Nora says, but you're really not religious at all, Vita. I told you not to call me Penny, Penelope grumbles. Why would I be? I ask. The church has never done anything for me. But how can you not believe in the Mistwatcher? You've been to the edge, right? I scowl over Nora and the Cake Soul Guy, both of whom seem a bit confused and disappointed in me. I mean, I know there is a Mistwatcher, I tell them. The islands certainly only exist because that thing tolerates them, and I know it gives people souls and takes them when people die and all that shit. I just don't want to worship it. Alan scowls as I call his god, that thing, apparently less than pleased by the description. Oops. Ha, Nora murmurs. I don't know, I just find it comforting. I'm glad that my family is in a better place now. I really don't want to talk about that, I grumble, unwilling to correct her. Nora's eyes go wide as she misinterprets what I meant. Oh, shit, I'm so sorry, Vita. I shouldn't sorry. I sigh. Angelian. Nora thinks Angelian's soul is with the Mistwatcher, but I'll never let that become a reality. It's fine, I tell her. Let's just talk about something else. Nora looks around, awkwardly scratching her head as she seeks another topic of conversation. So. Orville. And Netta, right? Is she your teacher, Orville? He nods. Master Netta taught me everything I know, he confirms. She basically does what I do, except 1,000 times better. I suppose that's one way to describe it, Netta grunts. You call her master? Penelope asks. Seems a bit old-fashioned for an apprentice. He calls me master because I bought him, Netta answers, crossing her arms. He's my slave. A Siguldian. You'd best have improved yourself since last time, Orville. Orville smiles a little at that, nodding. You're going to be impressed, Master Netta. I promise. Wow, that's a lot at once, Nora breathes. How come you never told us you were a slave, Orville? He sighs. I mean, it's not really relevant. I hold a normal job the same as the rest of you. My birth parents were both prisoners of war, so I never really got to meet them. They weren't legally allowed to have me, so I was sold off. I hardly remember any of it. Master Netta is basically my mom. Netta claps him on the back of the head. None of that, she snaps. No one else was going to buy a talentless foreign brat like you, that's all. You were cheap. Yeah, he answers, smiling to himself. What's a Sigoldian? I ask. Also, woo, slave buddies. Woo, Orville responds flatly, half-heartedly raising a fist in a cheer. Sigoldia is one of the countries we fought a war with 40 years ago, Vita, Penelope answers. We defeated them, claiming a significant amount of their former territory, and understandably we have had poor relations with them ever since. Orville has white hair, as I'm sure you've noticed, which is a trait mostly exclusive to native Sigoldians and Baldanese. I say. What's a bald one is the other country we fought with, Vita, Penelope sighs. Although they have, of course, cut off all reasonable possibility for either alliance or hostility, so they're mostly out of the picture. Neat, I decide. Eventually, the others return and our mission officially begins. Nora runs off to a nearby farmhouse after we exit the city, catching up with us before we hit the forest proper. Conversations start, our team notably unafraid of the shallow parts of the forest, and before I know it a few hours have passed on our journey. Ugh, she's just so pissed and I don't know what to do about it, Mateo complains loudly. He's been doing so the entire trip so far, though I mostly haven't been listening. If she's not going to figure out what it means that she's dating a hunter, the hunter shouldn't be dating her, Alan answers. You work too hard to be going home to someone that berates you for working too hard. I know. But I can't just dump her. Other than this one problem, she's amazing. Ah yes, Netta prods, other than the one small problem of her personality, she's amazing in bed. Netta. Alan chides. What? I'm just translating for the kids here. I'm not a kid, I affirm. Yeah, well, at least she's that much, Netta, Mateo snaps back, rudely ignoring me. Watcher's eyes, never date your coworkers. This way, I say, pointing towards the next closest monster I can detect. With 3 senior hunters on our side, the parts of the forest close to the city are no trouble whatsoever. In the interest of optimizing my power gain, I'm purposefully steering us all into monster nests. Between myself and Team Swordcake Soul Guy, things haven't been difficult until very recently. As the day drags on, we get deeper into the forest and I start feeling souls that we do actually need to make sure we avoid. As tempted as I am to go after bigger and bigger prey, my self-preservation kicks in eventually. If things get too hot to handle, I can't throw an army of disposable zombies in as a distraction. Instead I have an extremely not disposable team that mostly thinks animancy is evil. Besides Penelope, I guess. I don't know what this one is, I inform the team, but it feels big and slow. I'm not even sure if it knows we're coming, and we're getting pretty close. Oh, okay, it's coming towards us now. As if on cue, minuscule crystals of frost starts to creep over bits of the forest in the direction I feel the monster. I can't say I'm too surprised, there is a distinct chilliness to the green, slowly oscillating soul, along with an inherent desire to seek out sources of heat. Like, say, us. I think it's some kind of thermomancy creature, I say. Shit, Mateo growls. Hot or cold? Cold, but looking for heat. Watcher damn it, it's a frigid ozoid, isn't it? I'm putting 20 on frigid ozoid. You hate them? Mateo whines. I'm useless against these bastards. Does your team have much experience against slimes, Swordcake I mean, Alan asks. Penelope and I both glance at each other. She smirks. Do we have much experience against slimes? Ah, what a question. Well, yes, but not this kind, I answer, choking down a laugh. What do you recommend? That's why it's so watcherdamn cold, Mateo grumbles. It eats heat. My talent doesn't really cover making things colder. Since you are a pathetic excuse for a thermomancer, Netta grumbles. So I can't do much against these things. Hey, shove it up your ass, Netta. Can your talent kill it, Vita? Alan asks. I shrug, putting a hungering shard into my spear with a tendril. Eventually. My talent can kill anything. What happens if we stab these things? Nothing much, unless you do it hard enough to splash them across the horizon. I nod, stepping around a tree to bring the creature in sight. A giant, transparent pile of sludge oozes in front of me, leaving a film of ice everywhere it touches. The similarity to Penta's true form is striking and obvious, although this creature is substantially easier to see both from the frosted terrain around it and from the fact that it is about 3 times my size. It creeps towards me at a glacial pace, though I suspect if I actually touch it, things will go poorly for me. Are these things always this slow? I ask. Maybe we can just walk around it. We could, but it would follow us and catch up when we camp, Alan explains. They're slow, but they never get slower, never tire. They have limitless endurance up until the point they die, and with Mateo here it's unlikely it'll veer off to seek other prey. I sigh, getting close enough to flick my spear inside the thing. Immediately, the shaft of my weapon drops in temperature, and when I pull it out the spearhead is covered in a layer of ice. I did successfully carve out a chunk of soul, however, causing the ozoid to recoil in pain. It's still too big. It's a shame we don't have the time to study it, Penelope sighs. Ozoids are some of the only truly magical creatures out there, you know. Considering the pervasiveness of mana, it would be expected that many species develop a reliance on it, but this isn't actually the case. They are functional without magic, even if they are capable of magical feats. Certainly, they may lose out on incredibly important day-to-day functions without magic, but they won't outright die. Ozoids are among the only exceptions to this, being completely reliant on magic to even remain intact. I glance at her, a wordless communication passing between us. Oh yeah? I say. Hit me with that mana sight spell, would you? Oh no, they're both smiling, Nora says. Everyone be on guard. Bentley laughs at the joke, but Orville climbs up in a tree to create some distance. We're not that bad, are we? Penelope taps me on the hand and a thick fog of color representing magic of the world descends around my vision. Sure enough, the ozoid has mana constantly flowing through its entire body, no doubt getting consumed into the spell that allows it to soak up far more heat than basic physics would allow. I kneel down, moving my soul into my hand to stretch my tendrils out as far as I can. Then, I start pulling mana. Arm outstretched, I sink my tendrils into the goopy creature in front of us, then inject it with as much of my mana as I can. With a wretched screeching sound, a whole quarter of the blob around where I'm touching explodes. Goop showers over my companions, and so the senior hunters immediately panic and try to get it off. Maybe the goop normally remains active, but I can tell it's long dead before it touches them and doesn't seem to be hurting them at all. Which is good, because now I'm completely splattered with the stuff. This is why I got in the tree, Orville comments, the only one of us still dry. You didn't know that was going to happen. I snap at him. I didn't even know that was going to happen. I'm not sure why you seem to think that somehow makes it a better idea to stay near you when you try stuff like this, Orville counters. The ozoid starts slowly flowing away from us, whatever sort of menial intelligence it possesses apparently enough to recognize that it is in over its head. I want to eat it though, so I step forward and shove power into it again. This is great. I can just do this, and it won't make anyone suspicious of me. After all, it's not soul magic. If anyone tries to figure out what I'm doing, it's just going to look like Some kind of metamancy, Matteo mumbles, apparently also having turned on mana sight. Yep, Netta agrees. Disrupting the magic inside the Ozoid. Probably wouldn't be deadly to any other sort of creature, but magic is the only thing holding this one together. Yeah, things don't normally explode when I do this, I agree. Although, I pretty much only figured it out this morning, so maybe it's more common than we think. Another burst of mana into the Ozoid is all I need to weaken it enough for a soul grab, so I gleefully chomp down on it and watch with satisfaction as the rest of its body loses cohesion and spills out over the forest floor. Tasty. Wait, shit, soul grabs are definitely not metamancy. And I'm being watched. I hurriedly glance backwards at the two senior hunter mages, feeling at their souls to be ready the moment they try to cast anything, but they just seem mildly perplexed, not aggressive. Of course. Even Theodora didn't identify the snippets of my talent she saw as animancy, because nobody knows what animancy looks like since nobody is allowed to use it. Hopefully this just lends credibility to the metamancy lie. Well, it's dead, I say nervously. Next we should probably go. Something suddenly pops into my radius. One of the Vrothizo, a big one. It's approaching fast from above the trees. Incoming. I bark. Flyer, high threat, contact in 20 seconds. It's a target. I point, running back behind Nora to get in our combat formation. The senior hunters prepare in their own way, absurd amounts of mana flowing into the two casters as Alan readies his blade. A war screech shakes the entire forest, rattling my skull. This is easily the largest hive rock monster I've ever felt, and I can't even imagine what sort of terrifying creatures it has eaten. I feel another grin blooming on my face. These things might have very strange souls, but they're just as edible as any other kind. I confirmed that on the way here. This is going to be a wonderful meal. If it's big, it won't have room to dive bomb us through all the trees, Alan shouts above the roar. Keep near cover and expect ranged attacks. Sure enough, at his words, a scattered spray of black, bone-like shards tears down through the canopy in a cone-shaped blast, smashing into anything in the way. Hiding behind Nora, Penelope and I are perfectly unharmed. Alan defends Matteo while a swirl of wind redirects all the shards away from Netta. Bentley and Orville, however, both get perforated, the strikes punching clean through their armor, their bodies, and out the other side. Orville falls from his perch immediately, reduced to a bloody mess. Alive, thankfully, but unconscious and on a collision course with the ground. Despite his many wounds, Bentley manages to jump and catch him. Get behind that tree. Alan orders. It's diving. I announce. Port side, dropping below the canopy. Got it. Alan barks, moving to intercept. He must have had the same idea I did, as it feels like he's been waiting for this. Still, I'm not happy with this. For some reason. It's incredibly difficult catching the emotions of most hive rock monsters since they tend to exclusively just feel hungry, but they have some subtlety to them. I can tell they feel pain when hurt, and sometimes they even feel fear when in danger, though this is rarely enough to get them to stop attacking. This one feels a little different. It feels a bit too confident. And as it dives down out of sight, where it should be far too large to fly at all, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. Why isn't it diving on top of us? The Vrothizo finishes its dive, quickly leveling off just above the ground and shooting straight forward, utterly ignoring the half-dozen adult trees in the way. It flies right through them, and I don't even have enough time to shout a warning before bladed wings slice through the rock-hard wood that should be protecting us like it's not even there. Nora blocks, her talent as immutable as always. She crashes into the rest of our team, knocking us flat and saving our lives in the process as the dark edge passes above us in an instant. Alan's sword meets the wing head-on and is cut just as easily, leaving the powerful yet suddenly weaponless fighter only an instant to dodge the wing. He barely manages. Matteo and Netta aren't quite so lucky. The last two pieces of our ranged offense die before their pieces hit the ground. Another screech shakes the forest as I watch a torn-off chunk of Mateo's soul disappear down the Vrothizo's gullet. With him and Netta dead, our ability to strike back at the flying monster is next to nil. Orville is still unconscious, and from my brief glimpse at the monster's absurdly tough hide, I don't know if he would be able to hurt it with one of his arrows anyway. Sword Cake Guy, Alan, is handling the deaths of his teammates fairly professionally, at least, but with his sword destroyed I'm not sure how much good he'll be in a fight. If that thing dive bombs us again, we'll need him to be ready. Nora, I order. Sword. Now. What? Nora stammers, glancing my way. I grab Penelope and Orville, yanking them away from the newly created clearing of felled trees and tossing them behind cover right before another spray of black bone shards crashes down around us. It tears right through my armor as I try to leap out of the way, and I get a few nasty gashes in my legs. Throw me your sword. I snap. Alan. Catch. He does so without even looking my way, nodding in acknowledgement as his eyes stay peeled on the canopy, face hard. His team and his friends are dead, and he's out for revenge. Good. He's pretty much the only one of us that stands a chance at killing that thing. Another spray of shards explodes around us, but I keep myself and my team in cover. Penelope, ETA to Orville. I snap. 2 minutes, as a conservative estimate. I assume that means the others are dead. Very dead, yes. 2 minutes and 10 seconds, then, Penelope says. You're going to be a lot more important. Hold still. I scowl, but do as she says. Is there something I can do? I rack my brain for strategies. The Vrothizo is up in the air again, pestering us with more ranged attacks, but no doubt it's going to dive bomb us again soon. So if it's going to charge right at us. Nora nods in assent, finally having met back up with our cluster after getting knocked over a couple times by the incoming scattershot. Penelope hits Nora with a spell and she takes my spear, moving in towards the monster's likely next target, Alan. The Vrothizo like to go after the bigger-souled targets first, and Alan is definitely the strongest one here, other than the Vrothizo itself. It's diving again. I announce. Coming from aft port. The dive comes. With so many collapsed trees all around us, I can see its approach this time and really get a good look at this monster. Pitch black, like every other Vrothizo has been, it descends as a crescent shadow against the trees. Wide and flat, its wings are splayed outward like a giant bat. The front side of the bones giving them shape juts out through the skin, creating an obsidian-bladed edge with magical energy flowing through it like water. The creature barely seems to have limbs, so I don't know how it would land from the air. Claretta reported that Vrothizo never seemed to sleep, so perhaps it never does. The monster opens its jagged-toothed mouth as the dive levels off, and in an instant all that speed it had been gathering is turned directly towards us. Or more accurately, towards Alan. Nora is ready, however, bracing the spear against the ground just in time to have it tear into the monster's wing. Its own speed and weight used against it, Nora's talent prevents the spear from snapping as it gouges through the beast. I may have miscalculated how truly massive the Vrothizo is, however. Even with my many shards tearing the life from it, my tendrils find no purchase on the soul as I lie on my back, the wing passing barely a couple feet above me. Worse, my spear gets stuck inside the wing, the tip pushed through the membrane and clear out the other side. As the Vrothizo passes us, it takes my weapon with it, and therefore my last idea on how to kill the damn thing. Along with Alan's life. Perhaps he was blinded by rage and grief, perhaps he made a miscalculation, or perhaps the Vrothizo was simply too fast for him. I wasn't watching and didn't see, but he's dead now, one arm and his entire head disappearing down the Vrothizo's throat. I do note, at least, that he managed to give the bastard one last thing to regret. I feel the shard in Nora's sword wedged inside the creature's mouth, dangerously close to passing through the monster's head entirely. Just not close enough. I scowl, taking only a moment to grind my teeth in frustration before I make the inevitable decision. I refuse to die here. If this gets me killed later, well, I'll figure that out then. Nora. I bark. Cover me. We're going to the senior hunters. A thunderous crash deafens us for a moment as Nora blocks a blast from above, staggering as she approaches me. They're dead, she shrieks. I know. I yell back, ears still ringing as I sprint underneath the safety of her upraised shield. Trust me. She swallows, nodding immediately. We start to run, Orville's bow and arrows in my hands, just in case Netta's broke when she had part of her head carved off. You got a plan, V? Nora asks, barely managing to avoid falling on me as another spray from above almost knocks her over. Yes, but you are going to hate it, I mumble. In terms of your talent, do corpses count as objects? Probably. I've never tried. I gather 3 soul shards, each in their own tentacle. Well, try, and also try not to freak out. What does that mean? Vita. Another spray of bone crashes around us, and immediately afterwards I burst forward, tentacle-enhanced limbs drastically stronger and faster than Nora's best pace. Scooping up the souls of the senior hunters, I smash them together with a shard, shove all 3 back into their mangled bodies, and turn to point right up at our ravenous assailant. Shoot to kill, I order, just in case my 3 new revenants need a little push. Netta only has one eye now, a diagonal chunk of her skull from scalp to cheekbone having been sheared clean off over the nose. Even without depth perception and with a brain exposed to the open air, however, her movements lack the slightest touch of hesitation as she retrieves her bow, draws mana, and fires a thunderous shot up at the visible Vrothizo. Her arrow punches a hole right through its left wing, causing the monster to shriek in fury and retaliate with another cone of deadly shards, blasting out from its mouth. Nora having not quite reached us, Alan jumps to my defense, the shards crashing into him with the same clang caused when they hit Nora's shield. I shoot a grin her way, thankful for the timely ranged reinforce that I know is so difficult for her to pull off. It probably saved my life, since the shards had a good chance of punching right through Alan's body and subsequently my own without her intervention. I don't think she's smiling back, though. Her eyes are locked on mine, and though I cannot see her face through her helmet, the terror, revulsion, and betrayal I feel in her soul paint a clear picture. My smile drops. That's a problem I'll have to handle later. She's on my side for now, which means I and the rest of us all get to live. Netta wastes no time firing another shot, then another, which is followed up by a massive gout of fire from Matteo, having finally used his one arm to flip the top half of his body face up. The Vrothizo's flight finally fails, an impotent scream erupting from the monster's throat as it falls into a tailspin and finally dies as it crashes headfirst into the ground. Gleefully, I run over to pick up its soul as well as the pieces of it my hungering shards have collected. It's genuinely incredible how massive and how powerful this monster has gotten in the short time it's been alive. And now that power is all mine. I start breaking apart the massive, void-like soul into more easily digestible chunks, knowing I don't have a chance of being able to store something this large for later. Not that I want to. Ooh, this is gonna be. Vita. What? I snap, glaring backwards. I'm eating here. Nora glances back and forth between me and my revenants, each of whom seem to be examining themselves with a mix of confusion and dread. Matteo can't stand, his legs somewhat useless as only a smattering of abdominal oblique muscle connects his chest to his hips. Without the threat of danger or the demand of one of my orders on his consciousness, he has defaulted to staring in vacant horror at his own intestines, which dribble out from the wide nothingness where his stomach and ribs once were. Netta flexes one hand, her other. Feeling at the new cavity in her skull and the useless lump of matter that was once her brain which rests inside. Alan, meanwhile, is completely headless. He seems to be trying to look around, as if he is somehow aware of his surroundings. I suppose, now that I think about it, my revenants are unlikely to have ever been using their eyes to see. It is not as though the eyes still work, even if they happen to remain inside the body. Tell me this isn't what it looks like, Nora pleads. And what does it look like? I ask, sighing. Because it looks to me like I just saved your and everyone else's life. You're welcome. You're a necromancer, she accuses, spitting the word. I know I expected it, but it still hurts a lot more than I thought it would. It's my talent, I growl. I didn't ask for this. I didn't seek it out or learn any of it on purpose. Don't look at me like that. I point an accusatory finger at her, causing her to take a step back. Again, I can't actually see her expression, but I can tell. She's judging me, coming up with all sorts of crazy nonsense in her head. After everything we've been through, is it really all wiped away because of this? There's no such thing as an animancy talent, Nora counters, parroting bullshit as if I'm not walking proof of its falsehood. Well, I have one anyway, I snap. I'm obviously not casting. What do you want me to say? My tendrils finish peeling off an edible chunk of the Vrothizo soul and I slurp it down, shuddering a little as the power flows into me. Netta's head snaps my way, her eyes wide. Heh, I must register on her danger sense. I shoot her a grin. Only a bit hesitantly, she smiles back. Wow. It feels so nice to have people that are supportive. I believe her, Bentley stammers. Glancing back over where Bentley, Orville, and Penelope are, I see that Orville is healed but not conscious, his head resting on Bentley's lap. Penelope's attention is now on Bentley's wounds, which she is quickly repairing. It's Vita, he says. She's our friend. She just made a bunch of zombies. Nora blurts, her voice shrill. Revenants, I correct. They have to go back to the Watcher. This is wrong. She's trapping people's souls in agony. Agony? I scoff. Hey Netta, are you in agony? Surprisingly, no, Netta answers. Not even the hole in my head hurts. This is a bit surreal, but overall I feel fine. Sword cake? Penelope asks, raising an eyebrow. I mean Alan. I just can't believe you hid this from us, Nora breathes. She's right, Bentley agrees. Please, Nora. I'm freaked out too, but, it's Vita. It'll be okay. Okay. Fine, Nora relents. We'll use them to help save the people of New Talsi. Someone has to, and... Bentley's right. You're still you, V. Yeah. Of course, I confirm, swallowing more soul. I smile a little, feeling out Penelope and finally getting the impression that she's weaker than I am. About time. And you're not gonna just, wipe our memory or something? Nora asks. I can't even do that, I say. That's cognomancy. My talent only covers necromancy. I bring the dead back to life, sure, but all the really spooky stuff is out of my wheelhouse. Not strictly true, but true enough. Nora nods slowly. Okay, she says. I guess we'll do this. For now. Until we don't have to anymore. But then we need to release these people to the Mistwatcher, okay? I shrug, crawling over the body of the Vrothizo as I physically retrieve the weapon stuck inside it. Miraculously, my spear didn't get smashed to smithereens during the crash, which is quite a relief. I reabsorb the hungering shards in it and the sword, saving the last bit of Vrothizo for dessert. We can worry about that if we survive, I grumble noncommittally. I doubt this is going to be the last monster between here and New Talsi, not to mention having to deal with that creepy talking one. Fine, Nora relents. I'm sorry I freaked out, it's a lot, okay? I know you're trying to do the right thing, and I'm sorry. We'll talk, okay? Oh, good. I can feel she's gone from purge the heretic to teach the sinner, for she knows not what she does. I suppose that's an improvement. I'll take it. Maybe I can teach her a thing or two instead. Just don't let anyone else die, I tell her. Or re-die, for that matter. Can you keep the revenants protected if they get attacked again? We absolutely need their firepower. I can try, I suppose, Nora hedges, casting another nervous glance in the direction of the undead. I definitely can't protect all three at once, though. That's fine, I shrug. You probably won't have to. Vrothizo seemed to target the strongest person first. I finish off the last of the soul, feeling the absurd amount of power swell within me. Holy shit, I feel invincible. Stretching them out, I can see my tentacles reaching up to 6 feet away. My sensory distance is so much farther now as well, though I won't be able to figure out how far until we get home and measure it. I take a deep breath and make an experimental jab with my spear, the might of my soul moving my body so effortlessly that my muscles barely contribute. I'm faster, stronger. Drastically so. Just a few months ago, my eyes wouldn't have even been able to follow the blow. My soul stirs, a threshold of power reached. Something new starts to grow inside me. If they attack the strongest person first, would that not be the undead? Penelope asks. Not anymore, I answer, unable to suppress a grin. 3 people died in this fight, my secrets got revealed to the whole team, and there's no way this isn't going to bite me hard in the ass. Yet despite all of that, even though I know I shouldn't, it's hard not to feel it was worth it. Ready to go, Lark? August asks, smiling my way. I nod, reaching up to grasp his outstretched hand as we walk together. I gave in to hunger and hunted last night. But I didn't hunt humans. I never sought a target, never followed someone home. I almost did, but flashes of memory stopped me dead in my tracks whenever I tried. Sharif's sobbing face. The words I spoke to make it worse. The look of utter hatred in his father's eyes as I devoured his wife in front of his eyes. Humans seem to forget things, to lose information over time. I don't. Every memory is recalled with perfect clarity, from the taste of blood to the muffled screams to the beads of sweat glistening on the faces of my victims. But now, I understand so much more of what these things mean. It seems as though every day I learn something that brings a new and fresh horror to old memories. And yet, I still must eat. The forest holds many creatures. It is not as though I lack options. But I catch something and wonder, what if this makes me grow or change? What if this meal is the tipping point which ruins my flimsy disguise? I settled on a small creature, one that flew yet was not a bird. The meal was not enough, but I feared to consume any more. Part of me says, what does it matter? If I'm not eating humans, why am I here? Was that not my goal? Just return to the forest, devour and become strong. Then August squeezes my hand, and the shivering in my body stops as my thoughts are pulled back towards the present. We're returning to the church, the place of funerals. Yet today, August wants to show me a less solemn event. One he goes to every week. He was very pleased when I asked to come. Today, the community gets together to rest, to be taught, to appreciate each other, and to offer prayers to the Mist Watcher. Whatever that is. We file into the massive room, taking seats instead of crowding the center aisle like we had during the funeral. Rather than pictures of my victims, the front of the room holds a podium with an older woman standing behind it, smiling warmly at all of us. She even meets my eyes as we walk in, though I quickly turn away. I still have my cloak and mask, despite August's gentle prodding that, today at least, I should wear something else. As if I had the option. None of the other clothes he suggested were baggy enough to hide my extra pair of arms, not to mention the rest of me. My hair has started to get a bit out of control, peeking out through my hood even when I try to bind it up in webbing, but this doesn't seem to be an issue. Plenty of humans have black hair. Welcome, the woman behind the podium announces, her voice startlingly loud. I suppose it has to be to reach everyone in this enormous room, but I've never heard anyone that loud before. How does she do it? Welcome, all of you, to this glorious day of meditation and worship, the woman continues. I know our community is still reeling from the loss of our ruling lord and lady, may they be given their place in the Watcher's embrace. Lord Tafton's skill at managing our bountiful minds will be sorely missed, though in the coming weeks we will have the incredible honor of hosting First Lady Etna and her wife to take up the task. Risen to her station for designing and installing the Lisha Grain Gate, there is little doubt she will be fully capable of supporting our vibrant community. She pauses for a while as murmurs spread through the crowd, voicing everything from excitement to concern to irritation. When the woman starts talking again, however, they all go silent. In far less happy but no less important news, she intones, reports confirm that Lord and Lady Tafton, as well as their brave protectors, were slain by one of the living weapons from Hiverock. The room erupts into murmurs again, this time much louder than before. Hiverock? What's Hiverock? I killed them. Are they saying that's where I'm from? But I'm from the forest. Fear not, New Talsi, the woman says, silencing the room again. The king's wrath is mighty and just. Hunters have already been dispatched to protect our lands. Hiverock will not go unpunished for their evil. Not in this life, and not in the next. Shouts of approval echo through the room, the woman behind the podium smiling with approval at the sight of it. Now that I'm thinking about it, she seems dressed quite differently than any other human I've seen. She wears a flowing robe of pure white that tapers into a dancing series of strands around the legs, evocative of the tentacular pillars around the building itself. A simple hat on her head is the only color in her outfit, as it is adorned with a brilliant representation of a human eye. We are battered, we are fearful, and we are stressed. It is times like these, more than any other, when we are tempted to question and rage against our Creator. And so I have chosen my sermon today to discuss the hardship and pain in our world. If the Mist Watcher is good, why does our world, the world he created, have so much evil? The Mist Watcher created the world. I sit forward, attention rapt. Something created the whole world. I never even thought of that before. This world is often dark, the woman says. Our lands are often dangerous. We struggle and we fight, enemies attacking from within and without. Children are torn from their parents, parents separated from their children. Death, no matter how temporary, is a tragedy that pulls us apart. But we must always remember that death is temporary. Our ultimate destination is not here, in this harsh land, but with our Creator. She pauses again, but there are no murmurs in the crowd this time. Goodness is deserved by the good, not the cruel. Yet by what metric do we judge the worth of a person? How do we see who we are, deep in our souls, and know without a doubt the fate we deserve? Her ever-present smile grows wider. It is in times of struggle that our true colors are shown. The truly good do not lend their aid only when they have aid to spare, but in the darkest hours, where they have nothing at all. And though this sounds difficult, impossible even, there is truly no greater way to live. The man who looks out only for himself has only a single man looking out for him, but when we all uplift each other, we have all people looking out for us. And in this, we become unbreakable. This is the virtue of community, and it is the harshness of our world that teaches us the importance of this lesson. We need each other, in times like these more than any other. In the world beyond, we will live in a community far larger than we can imagine, consisting of everyone that has ever lived. There is no place for selfishness in this union, no tolerance for a cruel fool to spoil the harmony. Watcher bless us, dozens of people in the crowd mutter together. Community, the woman repeats, is the first of our great virtues. Wisdom is the next. To act rightly is not something we are born with. We must learn, we must be taught, and we must each personally develop the skill to think and act in accordance with the other virtues. Industriousness, the third virtue, is the keystone on which wisdom and community rest. We must each do our part to develop ourselves and our community into one we can be proud of. The Watcher smiles on the studious, the strong, the creative, the tireless. Our society must advance forward, we must tame these challenges the Watcher has given us, as that is their purpose. Every effort, from the lowliest washer to the mightiest warrior, is essential to our goal. Work with vigor and pride. She takes a deep breath, eyes scanning over the still silent crowd. I soak in every word, catching them in my memory forever. The fourth is forgiveness. The Watcher judges the damned, but we do not. All people fail, all people stray. Our world would not be a test if we did not first have to learn. Those that falter must be encouraged to try again, to grow beyond their failings and join our glorious community in full. Yet do not confuse forgiveness for apathy. A teacher must often be harsh. A generous person need not be a fool. And thus I remind you all of our fifth and final virtue. She smiles no longer, her face taking on a harsh look as her voice trembles with emotion. Righteous indignation, she intones. A fury we reserve for the truly heinous. This is a dangerous thing to cherish. To give in to anger is too often the path of a fool, and so commonly are people tricked by jealousy, greed, selfishness, and sloth into an unjust rage. Yet when a child lies starving in the streets, when we uncover dark bruises around a woman's neck, when our beloved leaders are stolen from us in the night, their son left an orphan, the feeling that bubbles within us is not sin, but justice. To have the drive and the will to correct what is wrong, that is righteous indignation. Those who fail to stand up to evil are the closest thing to evil itself. I sit stunned as I take it all in. So many of August's words, did they come from here? I don't have long to think about it, however. After a few more words from the woman, a number of other people walk on stage and they start singing. It's beautiful. One voice had enraptured me, back what seems like so long ago. A couple dozen voices together make something even more beautiful, even more complex. It is the most wonderful thing I have ever heard. And it is agony. Claretta. Claretta. I grip the top of my head, pressing down on my ears and trying to drown the sound out. No, no, no. My breathing becomes shallow and fast, my eyes squeeze shut. Yet that can't stop me from seeing and hearing the past. The time we spent together returns unbidden, the sound of her song washing over me as I tore the flesh from her limbs. The desperate screams from her lips, the many times I nearly killed Fulvia. The way she looked at me, perfect pictures of the expressions haunting my now clear understanding. Why did I come to this stupid town? I hate this. I hate this. Why couldn't I have just stayed in the forest where I was happy? Why couldn't those humans leave me alone? Why, W. Lark. August's voice is barely audible over the music, but instantly I look his way. I'm shaking again, breath moving too fast for me to speak back. Would you like to leave? He asks. I nod rapidly. August whispers a polite apology to those near us, who make room for us to squeeze between the pews and retreat from the church. I sprint away as soon as I'm able, shooting out the back of the church and continuing to flee until I can no longer hear even a hint of the singing. My hearing is very good. By the time I make it, I'm close enough to August's house that I enter without even thinking about it, locking myself in the bathroom and removing my mask. The tears are making it soggy. Lark. Lark, are you in here? August is much slower than I am, and he takes quite some time to catch up with me. I don't want to answer, but my still sobbing body betrays me, gasps for air alerting him to my presence. Lark. Hey, are you all right? Fulvia. Please. You're all I have. I am fine. I choke. You ate me. I hear him approach the door. This is it, this is where it all ends. He breaks his promise, enters the room, sees me and I hear him sit down carefully on the other side of the wooden door. Just nearby. Saying nothing else, doing nothing else. He hasn't ever wronged me. And she didn't either. You made me choose between torturing my friend and watching her die. I didn't know, I whisper. I hope they bring me your corpse. I didn't know. I shout back. Not that the memory answers. Still, I wail at it, rage and fear and regret pouring out with the tears. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No one told me. I remember every bite, every moment of teeth piercing through skin and shattering bone. Blood splatters into my mouth, dribbles down my face, my throat. The screams, the tears, the way she wailed and begged for it all to end. It's such a happy memory. I loved it. Even now, my hunger stirs at the glorious sensations, the unparalleled feeling of a successful hunt. I'm sorry. A long time passes before my eyes dry, leaving me thirsty as well as hungry. I want blood as well as meat. But I'm afraid. I don't want to hunt. Humans, animals, monsters. I don't want to hunt anything. You can be forgiven, August says quietly. My breath catches in my throat. August has been there the whole time, sitting right on the other side of the door. Of course he has. The thought puts a special sort of warmth in my heart, prodding away just that little bit of pain. I can't be the one to forgive you, of course, August says. To me, Lark, you have done nothing wrong. You are curious, energetic, brash, just what an old man needs to put a bit more life into his days. In the short time we've been together, I've seen you grow so much. I don't know your past, but I know you're strong. Strong enough to make it here on your own. And I know many young children make grave and terrible mistakes with strength. Sometimes, the Watcher tests us before we're ready. Sometimes, we fail. But you can be forgiven. You have kindness in you, Lark. I'm quiet for a while, slowly getting my mask back on over my face. I stand up, and slowly open the door. August is there, smiling at me. Waiting. He reaches out a hand and I grasp it, helping him to his feet. He's very, very weak for some reason. It's good to help him with things like that. What if I can't? I ask him, croaking out the words. What if I deserve our righteous indignation? Oh, Lark, he answers, looking so horribly sad I thought he might start crying too. You don't. Of course you don't. No matter what, I could never believe it. It's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Who I am. But that's not good. That's worse. I'm Lark. And Lark is a monster. Woo-hoo. I can't help but whoop out a cheer as I leap up above the branches, power flowing through my body feeling like a warm fire after a rainstorm. A bone-deep chill leaks out of me, replaced more and more by the beautiful strength in my limbs. The core of my soul churns out energy as I fall back to the ground, landing with a thump and a stagger, my startled teammates staring at me with a wide mix of expressions as I fail to stick the landing and fall on my butt, laughing. Vita. Quit messing around. Nora snaps. Sorry, sorry. I laugh, completely unrepentant. How high did I just jump? 10 feet? 20. My soul is moving my body. Muscles, flesh, it helps a little on instinct, but I have been unleashed. This feels so much more natural. I must have hit some kind of threshold, because my core just started growing strands into every part of my body, filling me with a power I can move as easily as a tendril. Everywhere below my skin is my domain. I could move my internal organs around if I felt like it, although that seems, stupid, so I'm not going to. Vita, stay still, Penelope orders in her I am your healer voice. I stop laughing, stop moving as she rushes over, hitting me with a diagnostic spell. She scowls, glowering at me. Do you feel any pain, anywhere? She asks. I shrug. Not really. A little in my ankle and butt, I guess. Mighta landed on it funny. Your tailbone is fractured and you have a torn ligament in your leg, she snaps. I blink in surprise. That sounds bad. I hedge. Of course it's bad, you witless imbecile, she snaps back, starting to heal me. What were you thinking, jumping that high? Of course you'll hurt yourself. You're faster, you're stronger. I can see you are very excited about that, but you aren't any tougher, Vita. If you tried to walk on this leg you'd eventually lose the use of it. I pout, watching her work. Is it really that bad? It barely even hurts. Does it even matter anymore? I ask. Does what matter? Penelope asks idly. Injury. I whisper excitedly, leaning in close to her and ignoring the resulting flash of emotion. I'm like a living revenant now. I can move without using muscle. She glowers at me, blushing slightly but distinctly unimpressed. Of course it matters, you dolt. Are you mad? Don't let power get into your head. You're still a living person. Besides. She jabs me in the forehead with a finger between spell casts. I've been working hard on that body. Don't ruin it. Fine, I relent, rolling my eyes. It's not like I've been serious. Maybe a bit excited about the idea, but not serious. Revenants are destroyed forever if their bodies are damaged enough. For all I know, I have the same weakness now. I'm disappointed that the increased strength doesn't come with increased durability, though. What's the point in that? There's got to be some way to mitigate the damage I take from hopping around. I probably just need better technique. I sigh, glancing around at everyone else while I wait for Penelope to repair my body. Bentley is awkwardly and nervously carrying around the upper half of Mateo that we managed to salvage. He keeps glancing with worry over at Alan, who's standing next to him, still headless. Alan seems to notice Bentley's discomfort, so he turns his body to face the guy and gives him a thumbs up. For some reason, this doesn't seem to help. My two mute and mutilated male revenants are adapting to undeath pleasantly well, all things considered. I'll have to find a monster we can kill that can approximate human speech, or let them take turns with Netta's body, though. It can't be fun being mute, or immobile like Mateo is. A good queen has to care for her subjects. Speaking of Netta, she seems to be doing all right as well, if a bit unbearably awkward. Orville is awake, and while his expression on seeing Netta's brain leaking out of her skull was absolutely priceless, the tumultuous storm of emotions and conversations that followed are less pleasant. And they don't stop. I just can't believe you're okay with this. Orville grumbles, exasperated. Netta raises an eyebrow. Would you rather I was dead? I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't either, it's just, he glances up at her head, then looks away for what must be the 50th time. You're acting like nothing is wrong, like nothing even happened. It's concerning. Hug, already. I shout, cupping both hands to my mouth. They both glare at me. You are rather feisty all of a sudden, Penelope comments, her voice sounding annoyed. I know better, of course. She likes it. I grin her way. Of course I am. I insist. I haven't felt this good since I hatched. We're in the forest and I don't feel anything threatening in my range. A bunch of stuff is even running away from us. Hatched? Nora asks incredulously. Yeah, Nora's not happy about all this blasphemy stuff. I haven't told her I got more power by eating a soul yet. I'm probably not going to. But surely it's okay to tell her a bit more about myself. Oh, yeah, so my soul is a little weird, I hedge. I can see and feel souls, you know. That's how my scouting works. Yours is pretty, by the way. It feels like solid water. You mean ice? Penelope asks flatly. No. I protest. No, not ice, just solid water. Like it's unbreakable, yet it flows. I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, souls don't always have a composition that makes sense. But I've always liked it. Nora clearly isn't quite sure how to take that information. Thanks, I think, she ends up going with. But Vita, all this animancy, it's not good. You really shouldn't be relying on it. I raise an eyebrow. It's not like I can turn it off, Nora, I say. I'm not casting a spell to do this, I just see souls. Always. I can't even close my eyes, or cover my ears, or pinch my nose or anything like that to make it stop. Seeing souls is part of my soul. What do you want me to do about it? It's just that shouldn't be possible, Nora mutters, looking away. I nearly snap at her again, but Penelope speaks first. I suspect that normally it isn't, Nora, Penelope says. Given my position, I would be aware if there were some sort of secret group of natural animancers. There aren't. Yet I'm sure Orville can confirm that Vita is using her magic as a talent. She doesn't know a single animancy spell. I have a few hypotheses as to why this is, but suffice to say she is not a normal human. You can stand up now, Vita. I do so, stretching and moving my ankle. I guess it was better I learned the dangers of overusing strength before we fight any more monsters, rather than during. What sort of hypotheses, Penny? Nora asks. Don't call me Penny. The most likely is that she's a victim of some other powerful animancer, Penelope answers, shrugging. A human experiment with an artificial talent. Nora's eyes go wide. What? That's holy shit, that's horrible. Penelope gives me a glance, half annoyed and half amused. You think you'd remember being a cognomancer's experiment? One powerful enough to place artificially constructed talents into a soul. I blink. Anyway, unless you'd like to get another animancer involved to try and quote-unquote, fix her, Penelope continues, staring at Nora, I personally think it makes a lot more sense to treat her as a victim, not a criminal. You can call what she is evil, but we both know she has gone out of her way to use her abilities to help the very people that would scorn her. She's not going around mind-controlling people, she's taking something imposed on her by a madman and directing all her efforts to protect the city with it. If you're going to judge her, at least judge her by that. Nora doesn't respond to that, looking away and seeming thoughtful. I open my mouth to ask Penelope about all her other theories about me, but she shoots me a glare and subtly shakes her head. Oh. Is this a scheme? She must be doing something to get Nora off my back, and doesn't want me to ruin it. Well, cool. It's nice to have a friend to do all of the social bullshit for me. How about my soul? Bentley asks out of nowhere. Do you like mine? I grin and nod. Yours is weird. I tell him. It kind of feels like you barely even using it. I think there's something more to your talent. Just a feeling I get. He seems surprised for a moment, then thoughtful. I'm so glad I get to talk about this stuff now. What's Penelope's soul like? Orville asks, he and Netta approaching us as we all prepare to start walking again. Oh, Penelope's is the cutest. I insist. It's all hard and spiky at the top, but the underside is just so soft, bubbly, and fun to play with. Play with. Penelope snaps incredulously. I'll thank you to not play around anything regarding. Boop. I say, poking her in the bubbles. She yelps and jumps backwards. What was that? Nora demands. What did she do? Calm down, Nora, I say. I didn't do anything. My soul just has these tentacles. And I can touch other souls with them. But it's fine, it's not any more dangerous than like, poking you in the neck, I guess. Orville clears his throat. Why the neck, specifically? He asks. Well, I mean if I wrapped something around either and squeezed really hard, you'd die, I explain. Silence. And not that I'd do that. I quickly add. I'm just saying it's a good analogy, because it doesn't hurt anybody to poke them in the neck even though it's generally a super vulnerable part of your flesh. I glance around at my teammates, all of whom are staring at me. I'm getting the impression that I am not as reassuring as I was trying to be. I hedge. Maybe not that great, no, Nora confirms. I groan. Come on, guys. I complain. The soul stuff is new, okay, fine. But all of you already knew that I could kill you with a thought. Why are you being weird about it now? Penelope pinches the bridge of her nose. Netta laughs. She's an earnest little thing, you've got to give her that, the senior hunter chuckles. Let's just get going, Nora grumbles, looking away. The sooner we get this over with, the sooner we can stop desecrating the dead. And what if I don't want to stop being desecrated? Netta asks. I can't say I love being a zombie, but it's sure better than being dead. Do you want Vita to just unsave my life? Don't I get a say in that? Nora doesn't respond. Nor do I interrupt. I have been as careful as I can to not give orders or talk much to my revenants at all. By unspoken agreement, Penelope and I have been keeping the whole, they follow my orders and instinctively love me thing under wraps. I can't honestly say that doesn't factor into Netta's desire to stay alive either. My shards have been integrating quite well with the 3 senior hunters, not at all like Theodora. And even Theodora has never considered death to be a good alternative to serving me. We should be going either way, Bentley murmurs hesitantly. We have to go save that town from monsters, remember? Right, Nora answers quietly. Of course. Frustration churns within her, her mind forming plans and hypotheticals brought upon by a clear distaste for the entire situation. What should I do? I might honestly be able to take that Frothizo on my own with all this new power, but it feels like a pretty stupid thing to rely on when I could also have 3 senior hunters as backup instead. Besides, why should I have to do whatever she wants after I just saved her life? I guess maybe I should just shut up and hold back my urges to be as open with my powers as I want to be, now that everyone knows about them. Clearly, that isn't a free pass to use them. I send a pleading glance at Penelope, who rolls her eyes. If this goes tits up, it's your fault. Not mine. Is probably what she's thinking. I thought we were close, I mumble. She glances down at me, an armored giant I have to crane my head to see something other than the soul of. So I don't bother, staring only with the eye I have within. Yeah, she answers. I did too. You're mad at me, I say. But I'm not hurting anybody, am I? I don't understand. She sighs. I know you don't. But the rest of you, she motions at the team, should know better. Vita, I expect not to get this stuff. But why are you all on her side with this? I shouldn't be the only one who feels the need to explain to her why this is wrong. Bentley just looks away, unwilling to engage in the conflict. Orville glances at Netta. Penelope snorts. So that's it, then. Nora snaps at them. Nothing. Our teammate is a soul rapist, and none of you think this warrants a bit more scrutiny? Whoa, Nora. Orville starts. Revenants, I correct again. And my revenants do not hunt and kill the living. Unless I ask them to, I guess. Watcher's eyes, Penelope mutters, burying her face in her hands. Vita, shut up. I'm just saying. I protest. It's our job to hunt and kill the living anyway. Vita, Nora starts. Nora. I press, cutting her off. Nora, come on. We're teammates. We eat together, we fight together, we watch each other's backs. I like you a lot, you know. I respect you, and I don't respect a lot of people. Can't you just trust me on all this? I know that the church says I'm a monster. But I'm not stupid, Nora, and I'm not evil. You know that. Right? She sighs. Of course I know that, Vita, but this is one of those things you don't get. You know. You're cute as a button and you're amazing at so many things, but you just don't get shit sometimes. This? She gestures at the revenants. This is one of those things. You don't see what makes this wrong, and I know that's not your fault, but Vita, you can't do this. I scowl at her. That hurt a bit. It's true I don't understand a lot of stuff, I say slowly. I know that. But if you see more than I do, it's just because I'm looking at stuff you're not. I don't know what you think you know about souls, or gods, or right and wrong. But Nora, I have looked off the edge and seen the soul of the Mist Watcher. I look up at her, making the conscious effort to look in her eyes, pleading to be understood. Your church is wrong, I tell her. Your God's true nature is a mass of hungry mouths, and the only thing it offers you after death is digestion. I know it. I have seen it. You want an afterlife? I gesture to my revenants, same as she did. This is the only one there is. What you want me to do won't save anyone. It will murder them. Nora sighs. She opens her mouth to speak, but I already feel her response and it infuriates me. I cut her off. The words stab her and she steps back. Vita, I don't. Penelope squirms uncomfortably, but I don't have time for that right now. It all starts pouring out, all of a sudden, the horrifying secrets I've had to keep in fear. Because here is Nora, the one who always had my back, always protected me, treating me like a goddamn crazy person. I huff furiously, breathing hard by the end of the tirade. I started yelling at some point there, which normally isn't a good idea in the forest, but well, the creatures that weren't fleeing before are now. Vita, Nora answers quietly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to belittle you. But I think you should maybe talk to a priest. Someone that can explain things better than I can. I know this isn't. Enough, I snarl, walking past her. I can't do this anymore. We have a monster to kill. Penelope clears her throat, intending to try and smooth the heavy mood over. Begrudgingly, in fact, since she seemed to really enjoy my rant. At least I can count on her. Approximately where is the closest monster, Scout? She asks. I glance backwards at my team. Right in front of you, I answer. Scary Animancer, remember? So stay behind me, and stay out of my way. I draw my spear and start leading my team directly towards the next closest monster I can sense. It's running, but it will tire before we will. A nightmarish beast towers before me, reeling up on its snake-like body. It must be over 20 feet long from tip to tip, with a tail ending in a wicked spike and a head fused seamlessly to its torso, jawless and horrifying. The monster's mouth extends well down the length of its body, opening sideways like a valve to reveal rows and rows of vicious teeth. Surrounding the lips of the wretched maw are limbs halfway between giant centipede legs and human fingers, dexterous and multi-jointed enough to grab nearly anything and doom any attempt at escape. Most of the others stare in horror as it rises, inhaling and exhaling a putrid, wet stench. How are you feeling, Matteo? I ask the monster. A few more ragged breaths are the only answer I get for a while, though soon my confused and slightly overwhelmed revenant starts to figure out the vocal cords of his new body. It was a pain in the ass finding a monster that might have vocal cords in the first place, but these things tend to mimic other creatures to lure them into its territory, so I figured it would be a safe bet. They're known as liar WIRMS. And Matteo is now a very cute one, if I do say so myself. Things weird, Matteo hisses. Better or worse than your old body? I ask. He flexes his new form, slapping his massive tail across the ground and undulating his many rows of mandible fingers. My team steps back, except for Penelope, who looks well. I don't know how she looks, but she is excited to the point of giddy. Better, Matteo ultimately concludes, and then he suddenly catches on fire. This terrifies my team even more, although I can't fathom why, since they all know Matteo is a friggin' natural thermomancer. Talent weaker, he reports once the flames die down. Harder to use. I raise my eyebrows, brushing hair out of my face with a tendril as I peer into his soul. This body is much bigger than your last one, I point out. A lot more of your soul's power is going into movement. Also do the fire thing again. He does the fire thing again, blistering heat wafting over us. I nod, feeling out the workings of his soul as best I can, noticing extra power getting diverted into his new body's skin. I think you're converting a lot more power into not burning yourself, too, I say. Your soul probably had a lot of time to improve your body's natural heat resistance, or maybe you were just more used to it. Do you think you can learn spells like that? Yes, Matteo intones, sinking his belly down to the ground so he's more at eye level with me. Need practice. But should be possible. I smile and nod, patting his brown, chitinous carapace. Great. Sorry things are weird now, and thanks for trying this out. Anything else you need? He thinks for a moment, twisting around this way and that to get a better look at himself. Clothes, he asks hopefully. I regard his massive, serpentine form with a mouth larger than I am, scratching my cheek. Then I turn back to look at my team, shrugging helplessly at them. I can't think of anything we could possibly dress this in, or how we'd even accomplish that, and it looks like they can't either. Nora and Bentley are both transfixed to the point of unresponsiveness, and Orville manages to only give me a shrug back. We might have to figure that one out later, Matteo, I answer him. Sorry. You're kind of bigger than my house. Not anymore, he isn't, Penelope comments, approaching Matteo and calmly hopping onto his back. I got you and your family a new house, remember? Oh yeah, I say. Thanks again for that, by the way. Are you, She sits side saddle on my enormous sapient snake revenant, calmly holding onto one of the interlocking armored plates that form his body as he practices how to slither. Are you comfy up there? Walking has always been my least favorite part of being a hunter, she admits, stretching and massaging her legs. You don't mind, do you? Matteo? She's about 80% lying about not wanting to walk. She needs contact to cast the spells she uses to preserve the corpses of my revenants, and she starts subtly doing exactly that the moment she hops on. It's an unspoken agreement between Penelope and I that we don't let on how much she already knew about all of this. If this blows up in my face, there's no sense dragging her down too. Fortunately, Matteo doesn't seem to mind being used as a mount, at least not by someone as beautiful as Penelope. He responds with a hissing laugh, clearly amused, though the reactions of the others indicate I'm maybe the only one who picks up on that. Healer the only non-coward, he jeers, slithering around the others and putting his dead maw close enough to breathe on them. Nora squeaks when he gets close, actually squeaks like a bunny. It's hilarious. You sure you don't want a monster body, Alan? I ask. I'm sure we could find a good one. The headless Alan gives me 2 thumbs down, then indicates his sword. Well, Nora's former sword, which he's still holding since his old one broke. No way on a monster body, I need hands to be able to use my skills, is probably what he means. I nod back to him. Your call, no worries. I join Penelope on Matteo's back, and together we slither off towards our destination. I've spent the last couple of days on our forest journey acclimating to my new abilities and consuming every single creature I could get my hands on. Penelope even taught me the meat preparation spell, although I'm surprised how crazy complicated it actually is. Apparently, biomancy in general tends to have some of the longest and most precise spellcasting commands, making it a huge pain to learn. Also problematic is the fact that while I cannot be harmed by overfilling myself with mana, I absolutely can be harmed if I form a spell incorrectly. Penelope likens casting a spell to constructing an essay. I pointed out that I've never written an essay, so she rolled her eyes and told me to just imagine a really long sentence. If you change even a single word in a sentence, it's possible to make the sentence mean something completely different, or more likely become absolute nonsense. But unlike humans, who can usually figure out what a sentence is supposed to mean if it only has one or two errors, magic is apparently much more pedantic than that. How you shape the spell is what it will become, and if the shape is wrong, you could end up with a spell that does something unintentional, or worse, you could end up with chaos magic. Chaos magic is what happens when you tell magic to do something that doesn't make any sense and it tries to do that anyway. The results are usually just an explosive release of energy as the magic gets converted into who knows what without any consistent guiding factors. Very rarely, however, chaos magic will randomly produce complicated spell effects that are a lot more dangerous than a simple explosion. Apparently, one of the prevailing pieces of evidence that talents are granted by the Mistwatcher with purpose and intent is simply the fact that, if talents were random, nearly everyone with a spellcasting talent would end up with chaos magic and probably kill themselves. Instead, there are no chaos magic talents at all. Just like animancy talents. So, what's our actual plan in terms of killing this monster we've been sent to hunt? Netta asks. If it's attacking people in a city, we dead folk probably shouldn't be waltzing in to fight it. That's going to cause a bit of trouble. Maybe just a bit, Nora comments, looking in Mateo's direction. He grins at her, or at least the closest equivalent he's capable of attempting with a sideways opening mouth surrounded by bug fingers. I'm almost thankful I don't need to pay any attention to his expression. Obviously, we want to lure the target into the forest, I say. We would want to do that regardless of how many undead make up our team. If we fight this thing in the city, what do you think it's going to do the moment it gets hurt? Eat someone, Orville answers immediately, nodding. Yeah, we definitely need to find it and catch it somewhere it can't hurt anyone. I'm going to guess it probably has a nest somewhere in the forest and it leaves to hunt the city at night. Guess or hope? Penelope scoffs. If the information we've gathered is correct and these creatures never sleep, it could very easily be hiding itself in the city during the day and hunting at night without ever leaving itself in a position where we can isolate it. Since our foe is intelligent, this is likely exactly what it will do. The sheer concentration of edible meat in a human city is going to so vastly outstrip that of the forest that I would be surprised if a Vrothizo would willingly retreat from it. You know a lot about these things, Penny? Nora asks. If you call me Penny again you won't shit solid for a week, Penelope answers, delivering her threat with all the inflection of saying hello to an acquaintance. And yes, I've consulted Claretta extensively on the matter. Although her time was spent with an abnormal variant, that abnormal variant is most likely our target, and even if it isn't, Claretta is still far and away the person with the most experience watching Vrothizo in their natural habitat. We should expect to find our quarry in the city, not the forest surrounding it. How are we going to lure it away from people, then? Netta asks. I guess I'll be bait, I sigh. As the person with the biggest soul, I'm going to smell the tastiest. Biggest soul? Nora asks. What does that have to do with anything? Oh, did I not mention? I shrug. Vrothizo eat souls. That's why they leave their victims alive and don't eat corpses. Try not to get bit. Only silence and fear answer me, and I'm disinclined to explain any other details on the matter. Even if I'm just being informative, Nora and also Bentley seem to get pretty freaked out when I talk about animancy. Bentley I'll forgive, since he is a giant puppy dog and also has not suggested at any point that I should be handed over to murderous zealots. He's torn, though. I don't think he thinks Nora is wrong, exactly, just that he's loyal to the idea of our team staying together. It'll have to do. Orville seems to have minimal attachment to the church, and combined with Netta only being alive so long as I will it, I think if push comes to shove he will support me. Animancy still freaks him out, and I don't think he likes anything about the situation, but Orville is nothing if not a realist. When the alternative is the destruction of the only mother he has ever known, he knows where he stands. Time seems to pass quickly, our many-day trip through the forest soon comes to a close. The forest starkly and suddenly ends, revealing the flat, dry land where not even the ravenous flora of Verdantop dares to grow. The earth is hard and thick with salt, the only life successfully managing to survive here being the stupid and ever-industrious humans in the city of New Talsi. New Talsi is an interesting-looking place, lacking the massive defensive walls of Skyhope but instead being surrounded with enormous wooden guard towers that dwarf the many buildings behind them. Any monster that even tries to exit the forest could be pelted with hundreds of arrows from expert bowmen before even reaching the towers themselves, let alone the city proper. Many of them certainly look our way as we emerge from the forest, minus my revenants of course, and we quickly locate and walk to the road to give the guards plenty of time to prepare for us. No one else is on the road today, which I suspect is fairly normal. What I'm not sure is normal is how nervous all the guards suddenly become as we get closer to the city. A guard in one tower holds flags, signaling to the others and suddenly putting every other tower on edge. Armed and armored people emerge from the city, blocking off the road, a few people from the towers descending to join them. Is something the matter? Penelope asks, once we get in polite shouting distance of the guards. State your business, a guard orders. We're the hunters that have been sent to deal with your monster problem, I answer. Told you so, another guard mutters, nudging one of the men from the towers. Of course hunters are going to feel weird. We've had strong hunters before, and one of them does not feel like a hunter, he protests. Just to be sure, we're going to ask to submit you to a biomancy test, the guard that first spoke grunts. Sorry for the inconvenience. This is your fault, isn't it? Orville whispers to me. Probably, I reluctantly admit. I was already pinging as spooky after my solo trip, so I can't imagine what I feel like now. You should be doing biomancy tests on all travelers anyway, Penelope says, answering the guard. The capital had trouble with some nasty parasites from the forest. We don't have the capital's luck when it comes to having a lot of biomancers available, the guard grumbles. You'll have to wait for us to fetch one. If there's another Nora colony here, you are not to try to adopt one, Penelope says firmly. Fine, I groan, rolling my eye. Not that she can see it. Seriously, what happened to you two on that mission we didn't get to go on? Orville mutters. We just had a nice, rousing round of genocide against a sapient species after nearly being killed by the Mistwatcher and subsequently a very grumpy Galdra the Annihilator. Also, Penelope enslaved me. I believe you mean also, Penelope saved my life, Penelope chimes in haughtily. Twice. One method of which just so happened to make ingenious use of property law. Woo, slave buddies, Orville intones blandly. Actually, are you still a slave now that your mom is dead? I ask. Watcher's eyes, Vita. Nora mutters, face. In her hands. What? I just don't know how that works. Unfortunately, the biomancer arrives before I can learn more about slave law. We sit through their excruciatingly slow examinations before ultimately being allowed into the city. I am, after all, still physically human as Penelope refuses to stop reminding me. I'm starting to wonder if our team has been taking her for granted. Considering how much faster she is than the random person they got to scan us just now, I wouldn't be surprised if the average biomancer would have failed to save us from the kind of things Penelope routinely helps us shrug off. Now in the city proper, however, it's time to stretch out my senses. We have a Vrothizo to find, and if it's really holed up somewhere near people like Penelope suspects, I'm going to need to be the one to sniff it out. Not that I wouldn't have been the one to find it either way, I suppose, but it is what it is. To no one's surprise, however, I seem to mostly be sensing human souls in the human city. Hours of wandering later, I still haven't sensed anything abnormal. Maybe I'm going about this wrong. That monster was collecting chunks of the souls it bit and slapping them haphazardly onto its own. Maybe it will feel mostly like a human now. I make sure to take more than a cursory glance at the souls in my range, and after another hour I finally find it. No. I finally find her. The shell of human shards she has been collecting with her teeth have almost completed a full shell around the infinitely ravenous nothingness of her soul's core. Not only that, but they are much less the haphazard hodgepodge they were before, fusing and melting together slowly but surely into something more cohesive. Like one of my own shards melding seamlessly together with a revenant until there is no conflict between their desire to follow my orders and their base nature, each separate segment of person that this small girl has victimized are slowly becoming one. Even more than that, they grow on their own, just like Fulvia's broken soul. When that shell becomes whole, what will that mean? My team seems to notice that I found something, as in my ruminations I have completely stopped moving. I let them know that I've probably found the target, and we approach in silence. The Vrothizo's hearing is exceptionally good, and we don't want to give ourselves away. As much as my former revulsion at having to worry about fellow soul eaters has been replaced with curiosity, we still have a job to do and I still intend to take it very, very seriously. How can I hold back when that sick monster has surrounded herself with children?